In the darkest chapter of German history, during a time when incited mobs threw stones into the windows of innocent shop owners and women and children were cruelly humiliated in the open, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a young pastor, began to speak publicly against the atrocities that the regime had produced. After years of trying to change people's minds, Dietrich Bonhoeffer came home one evening and his own father had to tell him that two men were waiting in his room to take him away. In prison, Bonhoeffer began to reflect on how his country of poets and thinkers had turned into a collective of cowards, crooks, and criminals. Eventually, he concluded that the root of the problem was not malice, but stupidity. In his famous Letters from Prison, Bonhoeffer argued that stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice, because while one may protest against evil, it can be exposed and prevented by the use of force. Against stupidity, we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears. Facts that contradict a stupid person's prejudgment simply need not be believed, and when they are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential, as incidental. In all this, the stupid person is self-satisfied and, being easily irritated, becomes dangerous by going on the attack. For that reason, greater caution is called for when dealing with a stupid person than with a malicious one. If we want to know how to get the better of stupidity, we must seek to understand its nature. This much is certain. Stupidity is, in essence, not an intellectual defect, but a moral one. There are human beings who are remarkably agile intellectually, yet stupid, and others who are intellectually dull, yet anything but stupid. The impression one gains is not so much that stupidity is a congenital defect, but that under certain circumstances, people are made stupid, or rather, they allow this to happen to them. People who live in solitude manifest this defect less frequently than individuals in groups, and so it would seem that stupidity is perhaps less a psychological than a sociological problem. It becomes apparent that every strong upsurge of power, be it of a political or religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity, almost as if this is a sociological psychological law where the power of the one needs the stupidity of the other. The process at work here is not that particular human capacities such as intellect suddenly fail. Instead, it seems that under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and, more or less consciously, give up an autonomous position. The fact that the stupid person is often stubborn must not blind us from the fact that he is not independent. In conversation with him, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with him as a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. He is under a spell, blinded, misused, and is abused in his very being. Having thus become a mindless tool, the stupid person will also be capable of any evil, incapable of seeing that it is evil. Only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity. Here, we must come to terms with the fact that in most cases, a genuine internal liberation becomes possible only when external liberation has preceded it. Until then, we must abandon all attempts to convince the stupid person. Bonhoeffer died due to his involvement in a plot against Adolf Hitler at dawn on the 9th of April 1945 at Flossenbürg concentration camp, just 2 weeks before soldiers from the United States liberated the camp. Action springs not from thought, but from a readiness for responsibility. The ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world that it leaves to its children, Bonhoeffer once said.
For many years before the tubes of you, or even before dumb phones were a thing, I was in what I would call a counter-cult ministry, and it all started with two nice Jehovah's Witnesses who came to my door and caused quite the domino effect, but not like what you'd think. They got me in quite the theological chokehold that caused me to actually read and study my Bible, which made me realize that the beliefs that I had were New Age, New Thought, and not biblical, which then I repented of, but then realized that what my J-dubs were believing wasn't biblical either, so what's up with that? And then that caused me to go down the wonderful rabbit hole of learning about Jehovah's Witnesses, mind control, and cults. And this actually taught me a lot. It taught me a lot of people skills, how to challenge someone with differing beliefs without being an absolute jerk about it, and how to love them while still disagreeing with them. It taught me when to hold my ground and when to own my mistakes and how not to own someone else's reaction to my challenges to them. In other words, if they get mad at me because I'm being a provoking jerk, then that's on me. But if they get mad at me because I've kindly challenged their beliefs and they're big mad about it, then that's on them. But all of this also taught me a lot about cults. What are they? What makes a cult? What are the methods they use? Why do people fall for this? And so much more. I learned that critical thinking is quite important in aligning your beliefs with reality. I learned that there are very smart and very wonderful people that get taken captive by cults. So I thought I'd make a video telling you the things I learned from people much smarter than me in hopes of helping you become smarter. So let's start with the basics. What makes up a cult? I hear lots of people throwing around the word cult like people do the word love or narcissism. It's just sort of lost its meaning because it's so overused and misunderstood, in my opinion. First, let me just tell you what a cult is not, all right? Someone that has different beliefs than you does not equal that they are then in a cult. This is probably the correlation I hear the most, and it's just simply not true all the time or even fair. If anything, this is a fallacy to just dismiss what the other person is saying and an easy and lazy way out of not having to think about your own position. Second, a cult isn't just some small group of people in a house far, far away with tinfoil hats on and Kool-Aid in the fridge. The scary truth is that anybody can be involved in a cult. Really, really intelligent people have been involved in cults. But there are actually specifics for what makes up a cult. They're characterized by several key elements that set them apart from mainstream groups. First, they typically feature a charismatic leader or more who possesses qualities like charm, confidence. They're hilarious. Second, another aspect of cults is they often adhere to an exclusive belief system that includes extreme religious doctrines, conspiracy theories, apocalyptic prophecies. Members are sometimes isolated either physically or psychologically from the outside world, and it fosters a dependency on the group for social and emotional support. Control over information is another hallmark of cults. They tightly regulate access to outside information and discourage critical thinking. Cults exercise behavior control as well, dictating sometimes daily routines, your relationships, who you can talk to, even dress codes. There are also thought control tactics such as thought stopping and black and white thinking. Both of these are used to manipulate members' thoughts and beliefs. And then there's emotional manipulation, which is employed to keep members obedient with fear, guilt, shame, promises of love and acceptance. Those are common tools. Now, I'm going to elaborate more on each of these through what's called the BITE model, which is control over behavior, information, thoughts, and emotions. This was developed by a man named Stephen Hassan, who is a cult expert, and he has a very interesting story and background of being in a cult himself called the Moonies. You might have heard of them. I respect much of his work and find it to be very valuable. And when I first learned about this model back in the day, I actually thought it was quite brilliant. Mind control was my favorite thing to teach on when I talked about the Jehovah's Witnesses, and was always the first thing I started with because I needed Christians to understand why Majeda was so resistant to facts, even if it was presented to them right in front of their faces, yet still flat out rejected it. And of course, this isn't confined to just Jehovah's Witnesses. They were just the catalyst that I first learned about these behaviors. This model is also easy to remember, and when compared to high control groups, it's like it fits like a glove. Now keep in mind, everything that I'm going to share with you is not isolated to just religion and spirituality. This is found in social and political movements as well. All right, now the first thing that we're going to go over in the BITE model is behavior control. Behavior control in cults involves regulating and manipulating the actions and conduct of members to establish compliance and dependence on the group. They might implement strict rules, guidelines like dress codes. They tell you what you can and can't wear, what color hair you can have, and just overall dictate your entire look. There might even be specific clothing, uniforms, symbols that identify them as part of the group. There's restrictions on contact with outsiders. Members might be discouraged or prohibited completely from associating with friends, family, or anyone who is not part of the group. They make the person feel like they will take them away from the group, from the truth, right, that the group has. This group has the truth, they have the truth, and they're trying to take you away from it and impose a sense of superiority within the group, and anyone outside should be either feared or seen as a threat. There can be a regulation of sleep patterns or even what they can and can't eat. Some cults enforce sleep deprivation or dictate when members should sleep and when they should wake. They keep them so busy and so tired. The last thing I'll mention, which I talked about before, is the rigid expectation to adhere unquestioningly to authority. If you go against them, you might as well be going against God. This can seriously affect, by the way, how somebody sees God. They gain the trust of other people, and this is a key factor. They often claim unique special knowledge or divine connections. But here is a huge red flag for you. These leaders demand unquestioning devotion from their followers. You're not allowed to question them. Any dissent or criticism is met with punishment or emotional manipulation. It's not seen as like, oh, bummer, darn, Jimmy doesn't agree with me. Oh, well, let's just go be pals and grab dinner. No, you have to agree with the leader or else you're not invited to the pizza party. Guys, if you are in a church, a political group, or even a social group online, and you're not allowed to question what you've been told by the leadership or influencer or whoever it is, or you'll be looked at as the enemy, that's a huge red flag. Questions are not the enemy. Not allowing answers is. Not allowing truth is. And look, here's the thing. If truth harms your beliefs, then your beliefs are not grounded in truth, and it deserves to be examined. And if someone is speaking truth to you, all right, and say you don't like it and you reject it, that's a whole other problem. But to be in a group where you're taught and told something by leadership and you actually want to test it or are critically thinking about what they're saying and ask questions but are shamed or silenced when you do, this is me giving you permission to do the opposite and question those leaders. All questions aren't allowed, only approved questions are, to give you the illusion of free thought. You are manipulated into blind obedience. There can be an expectation on you to ask the leaders or leader for permission to make any big life decisions like getting married, buying a home, moving, having kids, and much more, leading to a really unhealthy dependence on the leader. This is also true of secular cultish movements, I've noticed. You do what they say and follow their lead, or you are shunned from that group. You're not just in simple disagreement with them, and they still love you and you love them in that disagreement. Oh no. You can form, or you're now the enemy. Now, next on the BITE model is information control. And I have to say, this is one of my favorites because I find it so fascinating and probably the easiest to spot, in my opinion. Information control can come in a few forms. Basically, it's limiting the access to information that's not sympathetic or in agreement with the group's ideology. You're not allowed to look at anything critical of the group. They will promote the cult's own beliefs and ideology as the sole source of truth. In other words, they will not say to you, hey, go ahead and really look at all sides of this. Do your homework. Ask lots of good questions. and research. Look for the truth and go with that no matter what. And use your free thinking and brain to do so. No, they will not say that. They'll say something like, sure, you can ask all the questions you want, but here's a list of the approved questions you can ask and the approved spaces and people to talk to about this. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a Christian and I do think that there's certain spiritual sources that can feed into me as a Christian and give me good Christian advice. But that does not mean that there's somebody that's not a Christian that doesn't have some sort of wisdom to offer. It's that discernment. It's understanding what is true and what is not. And then my ability to discern and look for information from a variety of sources. Cults don't allow that. They make you afraid to do that. Critical reading and research is discouraged and prohibited. So picture it. You're surfing the net and come across something that looks like it's critical of your group's beliefs. You immediately remember a recent conversation with another group member or leader where they have said that you should always avoid looking at critical information because these critics are just full of hate, they're demonized, or not as enlightened as you are. This includes reading books, articles, websites that are critical of the cult's beliefs. So I wear many hats in ministry. I do satire, theology, Christian stuff, cultural stuff. But as an apologist, that's exactly what you do. You go and you look at the critical information against Christianity because you want to know what's true. You test everything. What are they saying? Is it true? Because if it's true, that's where we should go. But as an apologist, to know what you believe and why you believe it involves going out and looking at what other people believe and why they believe it. It involves critical analysis of your position. There's also an isolation of members from outsiders. I talked about this a little bit before, and they do this from friends, family, or others who might offer alternative perspectives or support their exit from the group. There's a distortion of information to make the group's beliefs more acceptable, which includes misquoting sources or withholding information. And then there's the propaganda. Oh, the propaganda. If the only information you are forced to see or even allow yourself to see is from the group or cult, then they can say anything. And because they are the source of higher truth, the member believes it. So if reality says one thing and the group denies it and redefines it and says, no, this is what's real, then you are basically believing a delusion given from the group as if it were true. This is also how the Bible is distorted. And guys, let me just rant for just a second. Without exception, every cult or high control religious group always distorts the Bible. You will never see them say, here's the Bible. Read it on your own and think for yourself and see what it says. No, there's always a reinterpretation of the plain text to fit the preconceived ideas of the group, or there's always a reliance on feelings. More on that in just a little bit. And guys, honestly, I'll be the first to admit that not everything in the Bible is super clear, but I have to say that that's in the minority and it doesn't have any weight on the message of the Bible, major core doctrines, or the gospel itself. Majority of the Bible is pretty straightforward and simple. That's the idea. The gospel is supposed to be simple. And why is it always the Bible? Why don't I ever see any of these groups take, like, I don't know, the Bhagavad Gita or something like that, the Quran, the Book of Mormon? Like, why is it always a distortion of the Bible? Here's my theory. Because nobody tries to counterfeit fool's gold. Nobody tries to distort a bootleg copy of a movie or video game. Nobody tries to distort what's already distorted or twist something that doesn't have an eternal effect on the location of your soul. And honestly, the devil just overplays his hand sometimes, I tell you. The point is that if information is distorted, people wouldn't know any better because they're not allowed to compare what they're being told with another source. So controlling information means promoting the group's teachings as the only valid knowledge. Cults often emphasize that their ideology is the only valid source of truth, discouraging members from questioning or seeking alternative viewpoints. Now notice that it's what they see as truth. This is what's so interesting to me about our weird cultural turn towards relativism and postmodernism. It's not even a wrong turn. We've gone off the road. We are in a ditch and are burning in the black abyss. When people are aligned with reality, this means that they have truth. It's very, very simple. But if truth is inconvenient, what do? You convince people that truth is found in them or their ideologies. If you're in a religious space, another group, or even a college classroom, and you're not allowed to put forth another viewpoint or have an open dialogue because the environment you're in only allows one viewpoint, this is a red flag. Another thing that's kind of interesting and sad at the same time is that cults use something called confession to manipulate members. This is where you're put in a situation where you trust the company you're around and you share personal information that is then later used against you. Or you're manipulated into remembering something correctly. No, that's not the way it happened. Let us help you remember it correctly. Now, next on the BITE model is thought control. Thought control tactics are designed to shape members' thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes to align with the cult's ideology and the leader's directives. This basically means demanding absolute loyalty. Members are required to pledge unwavering loyalty to the cult's leader or doctrine, often to the detriment of their own critical thinking. Critical thinking is almost always downplayed and looked at as a vice. Your mind is a bad thing, and truth is found in the leadership or inside you. This one's huge. I've seen some really manipulative arguments for this, where some people will say, oh no, we are critical thinking. Let's join our group. We critically think over here. And then out of the other side of their mouth, discourage it at the same time. It's very gaslighty and very confusing. This is something I want everybody to pay attention to, the discouragement of critical thinking, all right? Many people are taught what's called thought-stopping techniques, which shut down reality testing by stopping negative thoughts and allowing only positive thoughts. So if it's not something positive about your group, don't entertain it. Cults and high control groups often discourage members from questioning the teachings or the authority of the leader, as we've already gone over, but they label this as disobedience. You're not as spiritual, you're not as smart or respected if you use your brain. The reason why this is done is very obvious. If you start thinking about what you're being taught, then you might wake up and leave the garbage behind. They can't have that. This is one huge way I see people being controlled. Everyone should take a critical thinking or logic class, in my opinion. On this note, one particularly interesting part of thought control is loaded language. Think of this as if words were people with really low emotional intelligence. These are words or phrases that are filled with emotions, meant to evoke strong emotional reactions or to manipulate people's opinions. This appeals to people's emotional faculties, not their mental ones. No wonder they want you using your emotions and not your brain. In other words, it's not meant to get you to critically think. They're meant to shut down your thinking capabilities and make you upset. These are words and phrases groomed for this sort of thing. The words chosen are designed to provoke an emotional response. It's done on purpose, and then it's supposed to influence the listener's perception through that emotion. Now, kind of piggybacking off of this, another aspect of language that's really interesting is when these groups have like their own language that can be loaded as well, and they have their own meaning altogether. As an example, religious cults, all right, in particular, this is how they create their own sectarian Bibles to fit their theology, and it's filled with unique words and phrases that are unique to that particular sect. Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, notoriously have their own translation of the Bible made by Jehovah's Witnesses for their theology. And guys, be very skeptical of any group that has made their own Bible version. Another aspect is labeling dissent as sinful or harmful. Any form of doubt or criticism may be labeled as evil, sinful, or dangerous to dissuade members from questioning the group. Then there's black and white thinking. This is where cults promote like an us versus them mentality, where their beliefs are portrayed as the only truth, fostering a very narrow and dogmatic worldview. Many times it's not that simple, all right? People tend to default to this position Because of the many things I've already discussed, they don't want to be seen as an outsider, so they fall into the trenches of black and white thinking. Then there's the discouragement of discussion. You're only to affirm the beliefs you've been taught and not entertain another perspective. We've mentioned this a few times. It's almost like a hostage situation though, where you're unable to really share how you feel on the inside out of fear or scrutiny or being shunned by the group. Now, last on the BITE model is emotional control. Now, I've mentioned this before, but emotional controls are the tactics aimed at keeping you obedient. It's manipulating your emotions. You don't want your followers to rely on objective truth. No. You want them to rely on their feelings, whether it's positive or negative. Why? Because feelings are way more easy to manipulate. Therefore, it's easier to control the member. Now, one of the things I remember learning about was love bombing, and I'm sure a few of you know what this is, but cults often shower new recruits with excessive affection, attention, and praise to create a sense of belonging and attachment. And here's the thing, I don't think there's anything wrong with being welcoming, guys. I don't think that every greeter at church or Chick-fil-A is guilty of love bombing. It's the excessive and conditional love and affection given to new recruits as if they will never be loved and more accepted more than they are in this group. And everyone on the outside can't and won't fulfill this. Then there's the shaming and guilt tactics. Members are made to feel guilty or ashamed for any perceived failures, doubts, disobedience, which then reinforces their dependency on the group for redemption. There's a push to create dependency on the group, and cults will provide that emotional support, belonging, and purpose to members, making it difficult for them to imagine leaving the group or living without them. And this is done in a very manipulative way. It's very abusive or toxic. Honestly, what it reminds me of is an abusive relationship. It reminds me of Mother Gothel in the movie Rapunzel, like that really toxic relationship. Nobody else will love you like I will. You can't leave, and the toxic bond is formed, and it can be very powerful. Another aspect is that your entire identity is found in the group. You are nobody without them, and fear is a huge factor to stay. Fear tactics are so effective in making someone obedient to the group or leader. There's fear of independent thinking, being shunned, losing your salvation, and much more. I've learned that if you can make people very afraid or that you've heard from God, you can make them believe just about anything. All right, so that is the BITE model. Now, there are a few things I want you guys to keep in mind about this model. Some of these things, if isolated, do not indicate you're part of a cult. So, for example, I actually had a young girl describe her job as a cult because the job required that workers have a dress code and had to do what their boss said. I had to laugh a little bit because they conflated having a job and responsibilities with a boss with cult-like behavior. Not the same thing. Another one, for example, is say an emotional control, right? There's a fear of losing friends if you leave the group, but honestly, this is quite literally true of any group out there. Just ask any high schooler. There's a need to take these as a collective whole and think about if you know of a religion or group that fits these, because this is what mind control is. Now, let me kind of elaborate a little bit more on mind control itself. Everything that we just went over basically is mind control. It's how you control people. But I say that mind control is not the same thing as brainwashing. That's another term that's, I think, been just overused so much that people forget that it actually has a specific definition and meaning and practice. It fits in its own bucket. To put it simply, brainwashing is forced. In mind control, you're coerced. You're tricked. And this is mostly how cults operate. Think of the difference between Orwell's 1984 and like the Truman Show. So mind control involves a systematic and coercive process aimed at gaining control over people's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and beliefs. So as a Christian, when I was learning about mind control and cults, there was one thing that consistently puzzled me. And I had to use 100% of my brain to figure this out, so go with me here. I always wondered why the specific similarities. How can one high control cult group who's never even heard of another one have these same exact things in common to even make them a cult? Like, in other words, they all have the same bite criteria, like they've been cheating off each other's paper, but they've never even been in the same classroom. How does this happen? Well, I think there are a few reasons. All right, so just humor me for a second. First, there's just no doubt in my mind that this is spiritual. In fact, these sorts of correlations and patterns fascinated me so much that it only reinforced my belief in God and that objective truth exists. And second, piggybacking off of that, I find that the more we as a society or as people get away from truth, the more susceptible people are to mind control. I am absolutely shooketh to see how much the world has changed in 10 short years. What used to be confined to religious cults is now found throughout our society. There's a reason why Jesus describes Satan specifically as the father of lies. He doesn't call him the father of another religion, of fake politics, or even the father of hate or negativity. He sits on a throne of lies. Jesus claims to be the way, the truth, and the life. When we take away the foundation of these virtues, God, because we want to go our own way, then all of a sudden, it's anything goes. Truth is then defined by who has the power. Can you see how that's a ripe breeding ground for mind control? You can't have a standard for any of this unless God exists. And all of this is based on what's true or false. If it's true, then it can stand on its own and won't crumble under examination. But if God does not exist, there is no truth, there is no objective moral standard, and every cult in the world can't be wrong.
Race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't or
Today?
cannot. Yeah.
No,
You don't.
no, I don't. I don't. You and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
There is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. There is a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well. That was said by Booker T. Washington.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
You know, it's frustrating to me that people take race and they make it personal. You know what I mean? Like we're at a loss in this generation. If you look at it in the 80s, Archie Bunker was a stark racist. Stark. If you don't know who Archie Bunker is, look him up. All in the Family, great show. You heard him. The Jeffersons, stark racist. Fred Sanford, stark racist. But you know what black people and white people did? They laughed. You watch 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Both of them hated each other because he was black and because he was white. You know what they did? They laughed.
You know, I said, and it's probably get me in trouble, but I said to some of my colleagues recently, so I know that it's an issue, but it seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle, it's in the news, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it, I want to just go, this is over, can we move on?
And if you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it, but making it a bigger issue than it needs to be. It's a problem we have.
And right now, we are in a society where we can't have a conversation because no one's willing to listen.
People are just shouting.
People are just
Whatever they
shouting.
think.
People are walking down the street, hashtagging everything, but no one's listening.
Using wrong examples to present an argument leads us nowhere forward. I understand the emotion, and I respect my opposition, but when you go into the areas of making false charges and living in the past, you do not address the issues of the present.
And, you know, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposed to minorities. And Roman delves into this, the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the
I
legal
think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
In the 1960s, 80+% of blacks were two-parent homes. Today, that is reversed completely the other way.
I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Little Yummy. Little Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father?
No one wants to talk about perception when it comes to racial profiling. No one wants to talk about stereotypes when it comes to racial profiling.
Blacks are convinced that the number one issue facing the country right now is social justice, racist white cops, discrimination, systemic racism, microaggression, whatever new word they come up with, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
This is what I know. I'm a certified scuba diver. My first day of class, they told me this. When you're in shark-infested waters, everything in that water is considered a threat until proven otherwise. If it's a guppy, it could be a shark until you know it's a guppy. And I think as black men, we need to realize we're in shark-infested waters. And if we don't sit our young men down and we don't talk to them about perception, if we don't talk to them about stereotypes, we're doing them a huge disservice.
It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Yeah.
You know, like I did talk about my 3 closest friends, and they did, 15 and 25. One did 28, this and that. I was the only one of the 3 that had a father in my life, even though my parents were together. But I still had a father who was a gentle man and a good example, and they didn't. We can blame the system if we want, but they didn't lock any of us up at 7.
Yeah.
We were all doing enough to get locked up at 13. My parents sent me in another direction. They didn't have anybody to help them, and they kept doing what they was doing, and the system got them. So I don't, the system is rigged, but why, all the more reason not to help it.
The number one problem domestically facing this country is a breakdown of the family. And President Obama said it. I didn't. A black kid, or a kid, not just a black kid, a kid raised without a dad is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crimes, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. So you're far more likely to end up in jail without having a dad than you are because of a white racist cop.
Prime example, I got pulled over by the police, come over to my window, flash his light in my face, hand on my pistol. I can handle that 2 ways. I can start yelling and screaming and tell him he a racist and he don't know me. You're doing this wrong. Or I can say, yes, officer, no, officer, or we done, officer. And both of them are going to have drastically different outcomes.
Half the homicides in this country are committed by and against black people. Last year, there were 14,000 homicides, not talking about suicides, I'm talking about homicides. Half of them were black, 96% of them black on black of that 7,000. Where's the Black Lives Matter people on that?
What happens with young black men, everything is susceptible to the question of your manhood. And what's going on in these streets ain't got nothing to do with my manhood.
Interesting.
If I'm going to fight a police, I'm going to fight him in a controlled environment, a court of law. I'm not going to fight him on the streets.
In Baltimore, where Freddie Gray was killed, Freddie Gray died in a van, I shouldn't say was killed, died in a van. Yeah. You have a city that's 45% black, City council is 100% Democrat. The majority of city council is black. The top cop at the time was black. The number 2 cop was black. The majority of the command staff is black. The mayor is black. The AG is black. And yet here we are talking about racism. I mean, it's absurd.
All cops aren't bad cops. 99% of cops are really good dudes and women. I've 99% of the people I've met that are cops are dope. I have a lot of friends that are cops. But that 1%, that's the problem. And you want to give yourself every opportunity not to end up a statistic.
965 people were shot by cops last year and killed. 4% of them were white cops shooting unarmed blacks. In Chicago in 2011, 21 people were shot and killed by cops. In 2015, there were 7. In Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. About 40 per month, almost 500 per year last year in Chicago, and 75% of them are unsolved. Where is the Black Lives Matter on that? The idea that a racist white cop shooting unarmed black people is a peril to black people is BS.
Black History Month, you find...
Ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
Abraham Lincoln, as my colleague said, fought a war to preserve the Union. That republic allowed for the people of the United States, under our Constitution, to amend it, therefore removing slavery, and then moving forward to the Voting and Civil Rights Act, and also the suffrage movement for women.
At the same time, and you would say it as strong as anyone, it's no excuse for bombing and destroying your own neighborhood. And burning down wherever it's happening. Burning down storefronts and stores that people
with mobs is how they get turned into that.
Yeah.
What's to be gained? You know, you stop for one split second to think burning and looting doesn't help you in any way.
I understand y'all upset, but like it was already said, I doubt y'all and y'all half as upset as I am. So if I'm not over here wilding out, if I'm not over here blowing up stuff, if I'm not over here messing up my community, then what are y'all doing?
I will always continue to say that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that nonviolence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve.
Muhammad Ali was the greatest name for a slave master ever. In 1964, a young boxer named Cassius Clay won an upset victory over Sonny Liston and became heavyweight champion of the world. Later that year, Clay changed his name, first to Cassius X, then to Muhammad Ali. Why did he change his name? Let's let him answer.
Why don't you like to be called Clay anymore?
No, Clay was not my name. Once we follow, believe, hear, understand the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and come into knowledge of ourselves, then we want to be called after names of our people, which are names that fit us black people. And Clay was a white man's name. It was a slave name. And I'm no longer Clay. I'm no longer a slave. So now I'm Muhammad Ali.
So, Clay was a white man's name, but Muhammad and Ali were names for his people.
We want to be called after names of our people.
What people would that be? Arab slave masters? Because that's who Muhammad and his son-in-law Ali were. according to Muslim sources. And let's not forget that Arabs can exhibit a variety of shades and tones. Here's an example of an Arab. Looking at this picture, you may be wondering, did Opie Taylor grow up and convert to Islam? No, this is Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi, the 34th grandson of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. This guy's so white, he tried to buy Go-Gurts at Whole Foods. And this is exactly what we would expect based on descriptions of Muhammad in Islam's most trusted sources. Sahih al-Bukhari, number 63. Narrated Anas bin Malik. While we were sitting with the Prophet in the mosque, a man came riding on a camel. He made his camel kneel down in the mosque, tied its foreleg, and then said, "Who amongst you is Muhammad?" At that time, the Prophet was sitting amongst us, leaning on his arm. We replied, "This white man," reclining on his arm. Why did Muhammad's followers refer to him as this white man? Because he was so white, he took off his shirt at night and got a third-degree moonburn.
Clay was a white man's name.
Sahih Muslim, number 6081. It was narrated that Abu Juhayfa said, "I saw the Messenger of Allah with a white complexion and some white hairs." What do you call a million Muhammads jumping out of an airplane? Snow.
Clay was a white man's name.
Sahih Muslim, 6071. It was narrated from Al-Jurairi from Abu at-Tufail. I said to him, "Did you see the Messenger of Allah?" He said, "Yes, he was white, with an elegant face." Muhammad's so white, he jumped into a hot tub and the water turned into creamer.
Clay was a white man's name.
The Muslim sources go on and on about Muhammad's epic whiteness, telling us about the whiteness of his shins, and the whiteness of his thigh, and the whiteness of his leg, and the whiteness of his stomach, and the whiteness of his forearms, and the whiteness of his armpits, and the whiteness of his cheeks. I hope everyone brought soup, because I just found the world's biggest cracker.
We want to be called after names of our people.
White people?
Clay was a white man's name.
Muhammad was a white man's name. He was the whitest prophet in history. Now, how many Muhammads would it take to screw in a light bulb? None. He would just tell one of his more than 36 slaves to do it. Let's read about some of these slaves. Sahih al-Bukhari, number 7263. Narrated Umar, I went to the house of the Prophet, and behold, Allah's messenger was staying in a mashraba, and a black slave of Allah's messenger was at the top of its stairs. I said to him, "Tell the Prophet that here is Umar bin al-Khattab." Then he admitted me. Sahih al-Bukhari, 6161. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's messenger was on a journey, and he had a black slave called Anjasha, and he was driving the camels very fast, and there were women riding on those camels. Allah's messenger said, "Why haka, O Anjasha, drive slowly the camels with the glass vessels," i.e. the women. Muhammad was so white, when his black slave Anjasha needed to beep at him, the horn on Anjasha's camel was like, honky, honky. Sunan an-Nasai, number 4625. It was narrated that Jabir said, a slave came and gave his pledge to the Messenger of Allah to emigrate, and the Prophet did not realize that he was a slave. Then his master came looking for him. The Prophet said, "Sell him to me." So he bought him for 2 black slaves. Then he did not accept the pledge of anyone after that until he had asked, "Is he a slave?" So an Arab man walked up to Muhammad and said, "I'd like to join you. Do you accept my pledge?" Muhammad replied, "Yes." But the man turned out to be a slave. So Muhammad had to buy the slave from his master. And what did he buy him with? He bought him with 2 of his numerous black slaves. Apparently, black slaves were only half as valuable as Arab slaves. Of course, Muhammad didn't want to keep giving up his black slaves, so he decided to be more careful about taking the pledge. Notice, by the way, how black slaves are described in Islam's most trusted sources. Trading slaves is equivalent to trading animals. Here's one about a black slave who was shot to death while unloading Muhammad's luggage. Sunan an-Nasai, 3858. It was narrated that Abu Huraira said, "We were with the Messenger of Allah in the year of Khaybar, and we did not get any spoils of war except for wealth, goods, and clothes. Then a man from Banu ad-Dubayb, who was called Rifa bin Zayd, gave the Messenger of Allah a black slave who was called Middam. The Messenger of Allah set out for Wadi al-Qura. When we were in Wadi al-Qura, while Middam was unloading the luggage of the Messenger of Allah, an arrow came and killed him. The people said, 'Congratulations, you will go to paradise.' But the Messenger of Allah said, 'No, by the one in whose hand is my soul, the cloak that he took from the spoils of war on the day of Khaybar is burning him with fire.'" So Middam, one of Muhammad's many black slaves, grabbed a cloak before the spoils were divided after the Battle of Khaybar, and that earned him a one-way trip to hell. Hence, according to Muhammad, if you take something from the spoils of war before the spoils have been divided, you're going to hell, right? Not so fast. Let's read about what happened when Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali, the Ali in Muhammad Ali's name, took a slave girl from the spoils of war without permission. Sahih al-Bukhari, 4350. Narrated Buraida, the Prophet sent Ali to Khalid to bring the khumus of the booty. The khumus was the portion of the war booty that was taken directly to Muhammad. Muhammad would get 1/5 of everything taken as spoils of war, including sex slaves. And I hated Ali, and Ali had taken a bath after a sexual act with a slave girl from the khumus. I said to Khalid, "Don't you see this?" i.e. Ali. When we reached the Prophet, I mentioned that to him. He said, "Oh, Buraida, do you hate Ali?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Don't hate him, for he deserves more than that from the khumus." So Ali had sex with a slave girl from the spoils designated for Muhammad himself before Muhammad decided what to do with his portion of the spoils, and Muhammad had no problem with it. Thus, if you're a black slave and you take something from the spoils, you're going to hell. If you're Muhammad's son-in-law and you take something from the spoils, no one's allowed to question you. And it's not like Ali had to steal a sex slave from the khumus, since Muhammad was happy to give sex slaves to his favorite companions. As we read in the History of At-Tabari, Volume 9, page 29, "From the captives of Hunayn, the Messenger of God gave Ali ibn Abi Talib a slave girl called Rayta bin Hilal." Like Muhammad, Ali was a slave owner and a slave trader. He had both black and Arab slaves. This means, of course, that when Cassius Clay changed his name to Muhammad Ali, he was taking the names of two men who bought, owned, sold, and traded black African slaves.
We want to be called after names of our people.
Interestingly, when he was growing up, Muhammad Ali didn't know much about the name Cassius Clay.
Tell me how you came to get such a Roman name as that.
Well, as I understand, I'm Cassius Marcellus Clay VI, and my great-great-grandfather was a Kentucky slave, and he was named after some great Kentuckian. Well, Cassius Marcellus Clay is a great name in Kentucky. And really, where he was from or where it was all originated, I couldn't tell you, but...
He thought it came from some famous Kentuckian, and he was right about that. Muhammad Ali was named Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. His father was Cassius Marcellus Clay Sr., who was named by his father, Herman Heaton Clay. Why did Herman name his son Cassius Marcellus Clay? He gave his son that name in honor of the 19th century Kentucky abolitionist Cassius Marcellus Clay, who freed the slaves he inherited from his father and donated the land that was used to build Berea College, a college that accepted students of all races from its founding in 1855. Clay was the target of repeated assassination attempts for his calls to end slavery. A paid assassin named Samuel Brown shot Clay in the chest at a public debate. Clay responded by pulling out his Bowie knife and cutting out Brown's eyes. He was later ambushed by 6 brothers with knives and a gun. Clay fought all of them off and killed one of the brothers with his Bowie knife. Clay published an anti-slavery newspaper called True American. When he began receiving death threats for his paper, he bought 2 cannons, pointed them towards the entrance of the printing office, and said, "Come and get me." After the Civil War started, Abraham Lincoln sent Clay as the U.S. ambassador to Russia. Clay convinced the Tsar, Alexander II, to threaten Great Britain and France into not recognizing or supporting the Confederate States. When Clay returned to America, Lincoln offered him the position of Major General in the Army. Clay told Lincoln that he would only accept the post if Lincoln publicly proclaimed the emancipation of all slaves in the Confederate States so that a Northern victory would ensure their freedom. Lincoln investigated the proposition and issued the Emancipation Proclamation. That's who Muhammad Ali was originally named after. He was named after the Kentucky abolitionist who helped convince Lincoln to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. But Ali didn't want that name. So he was given the name Muhammad by Elijah Muhammad. Now, it would be one thing for Ali to say, "Well, I just don't want a name that was ever associated with any white person or that was ever associated with any slave owner," in which case it would make sense to reject the name Cassius Clay. But if that's his reasoning, what sense did it make to change his name to Muhammad in honor of the white prophet with black slaves? And there is a lesson here for all of us. When we don't know history, when we become ignorant of history, there will always be someone waiting to step in and take advantage of our ignorance. Muhammad Ali was sick to death of white people using black people. Muslim preachers took that resentment and the resentment of an entire community and used it to spread the teachings of a man whose followers institutionalized black African slavery more than 1,000 years before the United States even existed. Now think about this. How long did the transatlantic slave trade last? About 3 centuries. The first shipment of slaves from Africa to Brazil was in 1526. The last country in the Americas to outlaw the transatlantic slave trade was Brazil in 1831. So it was illegal to ship slaves to the Americas after 1831. People could still own slaves, but the transatlantic trade was abolished. Slavery didn't last a century in the United States once the United States had formed as a nation. We remember the horrors of slavery very clearly because it wasn't that long ago. We have photographs. People wrote about it. A war was fought over it. Now, if just about everything most of us know about slavery comes from a fairly brief period of history, a few centuries, how much do you think there is to learn about slavery in the Muslim world, where the slave trade has lasted nearly 14 centuries from the time of Muhammad right down to the present? It's still going on in Africa. So Islam continues to take advantage of black men and black women by enslaving them in areas where slavery continues to this day. But even in areas where slavery has been abolished, Islam still takes advantage of black men and black women by lying to them and convincing them to spread the message of Islam because, as we all know, Islam is against slavery and racial injustice. That's why Muhammad called Ethiopians raisin heads and said that Satan looks like a black man. Notice, as far as Islam is concerned, if you're black, you're either going to serve Islam by being a slave, or you're going to serve Islam by converting to Islam and spreading Islam. Either way, you're serving Islam. Why is that? Well, the Quran says that Muhammad is the pattern of conduct for Muslims. And as far as Muhammad was concerned, if you were black, you were either going to serve Islam by being a slave, or you were going to serve Islam by converting to Islam and spreading Islam. Either way, you were serving Islam. Virtually everyone who was anywhere near Africa has used black men, women, and children to serve their own agendas. But no ideology has ever taken advantage of black men and black women more than Islam. So much so that even today, if a world-class black athlete happens to be named after a white abolitionist and decides to change his name to Muhammad, the whitest prophet in history, whose followers continue buying, selling, trading, and using black men, women, and children, the world will praise him for having the courage to change his name and for setting such a wonderful example for others. Muhammad Ali was the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time. As a boxer, he was brilliant. As a historian, not so much.
And now for a brief history of slavery. Here's the first thing you need to know. Slavery was not invented by white people. It did not start in 1619 when the first slaves came to Jamestown. It existed before then. It did not start in 1492 when Columbus discovered the New World. In fact, when the intrepid explorer landed in the Bahamas, the native Taino tribe hoped that he would help them defeat their aggressive neighbors, the Caribs. The Caribs enslaved the Taino and, on occasion, served them for dinner. Slavery existed in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The word slave actually comes from the Slavs of Eastern Europe. Millions of them, all white by the way, were captured and enslaved by Muslims in the 9th century and later by the Ottoman Turks. Slavery existed when the Roman Empire controlled the Mediterranean and most of Europe from the 1st through the 5th centuries. Slavery existed when Alexander the Great conquered Persia in the 4th century BC. It was so common that Aristotle simply considered it natural. The slave-master model was just how the world operated in the great philosopher's day. Slavery existed during the time of the ancient Egyptians 5,000 years ago. As far back as we can go in human history, we find slavery. As renowned historian John Steele Gordon notes from time immemorial, slaves were a major item of commerce. As much as a third of the population of the ancient world was enslaved. Here's the second thing you need to know. White people were the first to formally put an end to slavery. In 1833, Britain was the first country in the history of the world to pass a Slavery Abolition Act. They were quickly followed by France, who in 1848 abolished slavery in her many colonies. Then, of course, came the 13th Amendment in the United States Constitution. After centuries of human slavery, white men led the world in putting an end to the abhorrent practice. That includes the 300,000 Union soldiers, overwhelmingly white, who died during the Civil War. Now, am I saying that this makes white people better than anyone else? Of course not. My purpose here is to simply tell the truth, and the truth is that human history is complicated. No one, regardless of skin color, stands guiltless. Yet today we are never told to consider the murderous Persian Empire or the cannibalism of indigenous tribes of North and South America or the heinous actions under the imperialistic Muslim, Chinese, Mongol, or Japanese empires, to name just a few. Instead, we're told that slavery is a white phenomenon. And like all persistent lies, this lie spawns a bunch of other lies. On social media, I come across extraordinary depictions about how Africans lived like pharaohs before Europeans came and laid waste to their paradise. I wish any of this were true, but it's not. It's a fantasy. The truth is that Africans were sold into slavery by other Black Africans, and in many cases, sold for items as trivial as gin and mirrors. Whites didn't go into the interior and round up the natives. they waited on the coast for their black partners to bring them black bodies. The stark reality is that our lives had very little value to our ancestors. Here's the third thing you need to know. If you think slavery is a relic of the past, you're wrong. There are some 700,000 slaves in Africa today, right now. That's the lowest estimate that I could find. Other sources say there are many more. For context, that's almost twice as many slaves as were ever brought to the United States. Child soldiers, human trafficking, forced labor, these are the conditions that currently exist within the same sub-Saharan region where the transatlantic slave trade originated. African bodies are being sold today like they were sold then, and no, they are not being purchased by any country of white men. In fact, slavery, by any traditional definition, is exclusively practiced today within non-white countries. But we hear almost nothing about that. Just like we hear nothing about how slavery was universal until good people in Europe and America ended it 2 centuries ago. Why? Because our so-called leaders, black and white, wouldn't profit from it. Black victimhood is nothing if not profitable. It elects politicians and funds racial grievance groups. And if Black Americans began to view themselves as partners in the American dream, if we embraced the patriotic spirit that holds all men are created equal, the patriotic spirit that is our real heritage, then the race hustlers would soon be out of business. And who wants that? I'm Candace Owens, author of Blackout for Prager University.
One of the most common questions I'm asked is, how can you know if a person is truly a narcissist? You know, some of the characteristics that we talk about in narcissism are traits that we all have at some level. You know, you want to be in control, or sometimes you can be selfish. There can be times when you have an attitude of entitlement. You can be thin-skinned and defensive. Those are all characteristics of narcissism. So when I'm trying to assess if we're dealing with a true narcissist or not, you've got all those characteristics that I watch for, but there's one that seems to stand out that tells me, okay, this is a live wire here. And it's the characteristic of exploitiveness. Narcissists are manipulators, they're schemers, and they're constantly on the prowl looking for individuals that they can use so that they can get whatever it is that's going on in their need system met. And so these are individuals who are willing to treat other people unethically. They don't necessarily have a conscience about what they do to other individuals. And if others are hurt because of their presence in their life, they make excuses, or they step on it, or they say, well, you're the one that brought it on yourself. They can be devious. They can be underhanded. All of this is in the name of control, but it's in the name of control in such a way that builds up that individual very much at your expense. And so these narcissistic individuals are looking for people that would fall under the category of they're useful idiots. That's not a real pleasant way to look at it, is. It's kind of like, okay, you'll do. Now, I want you to kind of get an idea of the kind of people that narcissists love to have around them, and then we're going to get into a deeper analysis of what we're talking about. Let's keep in mind that when narcissists are engaging with others, they're not trying to develop relationships. They're trying to cultivate assets, and that's very important for you to understand. They like to collect people who will do their bidding, or who won't give too much blowback. They know you're going to get angry, but they can kind of come back and be even more angry. They like to cultivate people who will cave in to the pressure that they put on them. They cultivate people who won't ask the hard accountability questions, or who can be talked into going along with their schemes. These people they like to cultivate those who can be talked into compliance. They look for pleasers and who are very helpful by nature. They like to cultivate people who can be motivated by guilt or duty or obligation, and they speak in heavy terms like that. You'll hear them talk about, well, you ought to, you're supposed to, you should, and they put those kind of obligatory terms on people. They will cultivate people who can be motivated by superficial rewards. Well, if I buy you this candy, if I get you this car, now will you kind of be my friend and do what I want? And so they might use those kind of schemes. They will cultivate people who can be intimidated by anger. So when they come on real strong and you start shaking in your boots, it's like, good, I can work with this. They cultivate people who trust too easily. Or they'll cultivate people who might complain, but they'll still stick around. And as they are watching and observing and measuring you, there's always this one question in their mind, and that is, will you be my useful idiot? Will you be somebody that I can use for my means so that I can have my way in my life? So what this says is that as they engage with you, you're being groomed. It's like that they may say and do some things that seem pleasant and fun and playful up front. They can praise you and they can have a certain amount of helpfulness toward you. They can be charming. But in the end, they're not too tuned into you. It's all because if they can do that, then you'll be more inclined to meet their needs as they seem or as they deem fit. In other words, you become the useful idiot. And then you realize that this is what's going on, because the more you try to show your individuality and your distinctions, and it's like, well, I'm not with you on that one, or I don't really believe that way, they can come at you with the how dare you kind of questioning. How dare you come against me? Kind of a, do you know who I am? So they'll use that guilt and shame and coercion and blame, and then they'll finally wear you down. It's like, okay. And you remain as their useful idiot. Pretty sad, isn't it? I want to give you some illustrations of how this can work, and this is a very broad spectrum of how these individuals can have this exploitive kind of mannerism. For example, you can have a parent who more or less grooms a child to be their golden child. And in essence, they want that child to be a mini-me. And they may heap praise on them and give them favored treatment. And they may want that child to become the golden star. And the child has no idea, but the child is being groomed to be a useful idiot. I remember talking to a young man, he's in his early 20s, and he was on his way towards a great sports career. And he had a bad injury that ended everything. And when I mentioned to him, I said, I guess this is really disappointing that you had all of this. And his comment was, not really. And he went on to say, so much of what I was doing is because my dad was just pushing me over and over and over. And I was worn out. This has got my ticket out of here. It was kind of interesting. He realized that he was being used by his father, who was trying to live his glory through the kid. That's how it works. The kid was trying to groove the kid to be his useful idiot. Or it could be that you have a friend who wants you to be there to play with them, and they're fun and all like that. But then when it comes to the real life kind of stuff where strain and difficulty is, it's like, where'd they go? It's like, no, you're just my play buddy, and you're a useful idiot there. But when it comes to the real stuff, I'm not going to be around. Or another one, and this is very common, you can have a sexual partner whose chief end in the relationship is the sex. And that's it. And typically these folks try to move in pretty quickly. And they'll make you think, or they'll want you to think that they're interested in all sorts of this and that about who you are. But the bottom line is, I'm here to use you. Hot diggity dog, I can't wait until we get to the real thing. Or it could be that you have a boss or a supervisor who likes to gather people around him or her to prop up some of their irresponsibilities or their erratic natures. And so it's kind of like they'll intimidate you. You won't have a job if you don't do what I tell you to do. You're my useful idiot. Or it could be that you have somebody that's a volunteer in a social setting. And they seem to be willing to do so, but it turns out that this is a person who's constantly looking for a place where they can kind of have their little kingdom. And so by being helpful in the volunteer, then they make their way up to the top, and now I'm the one in charge, and now you guys are going to be my useful idiots. You can have a person who's the chronically helpless individual. It's like, I can't do this, or I need somebody to show me how to do this, and before you know it, they kind of pull back, and they've got all sorts of folks doing their bidding through their chronic helplessness. you become that person's useful idiot. Or it could be that the narcissist manages this way by being very angry, and then people are shaking in their boots, and so it's like, okay, I'll do whatever I have to do. Don't get angry at me. They're schemers, and they have all sorts of tactics that they use, and it's very important for you to recognize what those tactics are so that you don't get pulled in and become the next person on the useful idiot list. Now let's take a look at some primary insights that go along with this. And that is, first and foremost, when an exploitive narcissist is willing to engage with you in this way, obviously it indicates that they have no particular concern for you as a person. They can show superficial interest in you in order to keep you coming around. We refer to that as narcissistic supply. And so, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, it's like, I'm not all that interested in you. I'm interested in me. And if you can keep me happy, fine. You'll be my useful idiot. And then in addition, that implies they don't really esteem you. Whatever pleasantness might be coming your way can be taken away just like that. And if you dare to be a little bit too unique or different, or if you have different preferences or interpretations, it's like, well, then you're no longer on my team, as if that's the team that you need to be on anyway. In addition, we can say that these exploitive narcissists are highly insecure. It's like they're afraid to let you make up your own mind about them just on your own terms. It's like, no, I have to tell you how you're supposed to think towards me and how you're supposed to hold me in high regard, because I'm afraid if I don't, you'll just deem me to be a nobody, and they can't deal with that. Now, of course, they won't say that, but that's what's pushing some of their behavior. Now, in addition, we can say that at some point when you're engaging with these exploitive narcissists, you're going to be worn out emotionally. I have people that come to my counseling office and they're either so filled with bitterness and anger, or the anger may just have kind of gone out of their system, and they're just in futility. It's like, I don't know what to do now. And so keep in mind that they'll wear you out, and then that being the case, there's a high likelihood that the less into the narcissist you are, then you'll eventually be discarded, and they'll go on to somebody else who can be their next useful idiot. That's no way to do life, is it? See, let's keep in mind that in healthy relationships, it requires intentionality and meaningful relating. You've heard me use my mantra, Dr. C. DRC stands for dignity, respect, and civility. And we want those kinds of characteristics to be at the centerpiece of a relationship, as well as genuine, not phony, but genuine interest. One of my favorite words is mutuality. We want to make sure that I care about you and you care about me, and it's the true deal. It's the real deal, and self-restraint and those kind of things. So, in other words, let's recognize that if you're going to have good relationships, it needs to be a two-way street, not just one way where one person is just using you for whatever their immediate needs are. Okay? So, let's just conclude by saying that I want to be in relationships where I have that place of honor just as I'm willing to give it back towards them. And if that exploitive narcissist just keeps coming at you with, what are you going to do for me next? Then that implies this is a relationship that I cannot afford to invest in any further. I will be nobody's useful idiot.
Welcome, liberty lovers, friends of individual rights, and fans of limited government. Now, the most important thing to understand at the get-go that so many people get wrong is this. Your rights belong to you, not to the government. Here's a quick recap for those of you who like your constitutional law Tarantino style. After beating the mighty British Empire in the War of Independence, founders had to create a new national government. But right away, they started fighting amongst themselves about how to make sure their new government didn't turn tyrannical. The debate threatened to tear the new country apart and divided the leaders into two camps, the Federalists who supported the Constitution and the Anti-Federalists who were skeptical. The Federalists advocated for the new Constitution, believing that its structural limitations on the power of the government would be enough to preserve the liberty of the people, despite some ambiguous clauses that in fact caused some major trouble for the United States down the road. Now, the Anti-Federalists, on the other hand, demanded the Constitution include a specific listing of individual rights that the new federal government would be prohibited from violating. Notice that the whole debate was about how best to protect your rights against the government. Again, your rights belong to you, not to the government. Eventually, the two camps reach a compromise to add what we would eventually call the Bill of Rights to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights was influenced by the Virginia Declaration of Rights. The author of the Bill of Rights, James Madison, proposed amendments encompassing those natural rights considered to be the most essential to the founders, and were thus qualified to be specifically protected from the new and powerful federal government. As it's been described by Clark Neely at the Cato Institute, if the Constitution's system of checks and balances are the walls of a castle that keep federal power within the proper limits, the Bill of Rights is like an individual suit of armor through which even constitutionally exercised power cannot pass. Now, let's examine these amendments one by one. The First Amendment. The First Amendment means that Congress cannot establish an official state religion or prevent the free exercise of any faith. It protects our free speech, the operation of a free press, and protects our right to peaceably protest government actions that we do not agree with. Basically, some of our most important civil liberties. The Second Amendment. Now, the Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear firearms for the protection of our persons, property, and individual liberty. The Third Amendment. The Third Amendment protects the right not to have the government force us to house soldiers in our homes against our will during peacetime, and only allows it in times of war as prescribed by law, aka the least litigated amendment in the history of the country. The Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment protects our right to not have our persons or property unreasonably seized or searched by government agents. Basically, police officers should keep their hands to themselves. The Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment protects an entire laundry list of rights having to do with criminal prosecution and property rights, including the right to remain silent, the right to due process, and the right to be paid fairly if the government takes your property for public use. Some of Pacific Legal's most successful and famous past cases have been cases brought under the Fifth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment guarantees your right to have a speedy and public trial by a local jury when charged with a crime, the right to know specifically what crime you've been charged with, the right to make witnesses against you come forward and the right to challenge them on the stand, and the right to have the help of a lawyer. And the Seventh Amendment. The Seventh Amendment preserves the right to have a trial by jury in certain civil lawsuits with major amounts of money involved. $20. The Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment protects the right to be free from excessive bail, fines, and cruel and unusual punishments. You know, like torture. And last, but certainly not least, the Ninth and Tenth Amendments. Now, most people don't even know what these amendments are about, but they are in fact two of the most important amendments in the entire Bill of Rights. They represent a compromise between the Federalists and Anti-Federalists to not only explicitly limit the power of the federal government, but to ensure that the rights specifically listed in the Bill of Rights are not the only rights protected by the courts. Unfortunately, these amendments have not been enforced in subsequent years. The Ninth Amendment. Just because there are certain rights specifically listed in the Constitution does not mean and does not diminish the other natural rights retained by the people. This means the government was supposed to recognize all of your natural rights, even if they weren't written down. And finally, the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment reads that the powers not specifically given by the people to the federal government are reserved to the states or to the people themselves. Besides pre-existing government, the next thing that jumps out at us is the nature of the rights contained in the Bill of Rights. These are negative rights, in that they do not describe what we must do or what must be done for us, but instead describe our already existing natural or self-evident rights to be left alone. The Bill of Rights also does not make any distinctions between which rights courts should protect or which should be ignored. It does not say, the First Amendment is super important, but the Second Amendment's probably outdated, or the Ninth and Tenth Amendments really don't count. And in the case of the Ninth and Tenth Amendments, they were supposed to ensure that the rights not specifically listed were also protected by the courts, and that the bulk of power would be reserved to the states or to the people. Justice Jackson once wrote that the very purpose of a Bill of Rights was to withdraw certain subjects from the vicissitudes of political controversy, to place them beyond the reach of majorities and officials, and to establish them as legal principles to be applied by the courts. One's right to life, liberty, and property, to free speech, a free press, freedom of worship and assembly, and other fundamental rights may not be submitted to a vote, They depend on the outcome of no elections. One more time, say it with me. Your rights belong to you, not to the government.
You guys joining. Yes, the title is clickbait, exposing Tuapre live. Well, maybe it's not really clickbait because I am going to expose Tuapre, but I'm going to expose him not in a negative sense. And I will label him psychological operator. He's a psychological operator on the positive side, not on the negative side. Now, when we use terms like psychological operator, people think, oh, you just made up that term. Psychological operations and psychological warfare are terms that the military-industrial complex uses. And the reason they use it is because they are using it to use their persuasive and intelligence gathering skills against foreign governments for U.S. Army objectives. As a matter of fact, they pretty much say that. So this is from GoArmy.com, and we're going to get into Tuapre in a second, but I want to lay the groundwork for why I want to do this video. I view videos like this. He just posted this about 3 or 4 hours ago. YouTuber plus filming in public equals a crime. This is the way badged authoritarians view you if you exercise your rights in a public place. Even though it's got the blessing of the U.S. Supreme Court, even though it's approved by the U.S. Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, even though the badged law enforcers swore to protect, defend, and uphold it, the ridiculous aspect of this video is highlighted by the psychological operations expertise of Tuapre, if I could just put it that way. So back to GoArmy.com, psychological operations. These soldiers, and you should really view yourself as a soldier, because we are in a battle. This is an information war. This is psychological warfare. We are in, for lack of a better term, I hate to put it this way, it's an info war. And we've got to win the info war because the battle goes on in the mind. And when you have psychological operators on the positive side like Tuapre exposing what's really going on and how ridiculous things have gotten. And when I say ridiculous, I'm using it in the sense of worthy of ridicule. Nothing in my mind is more worthy of ridicule than people who are freaking out, people who are being filmed from every angle by government cameras. These people are freaking out because one more guy with a camera has arrived on the scene. And what is their knee-jerk reaction? They're going to call the emergency services number, where more men and women with cameras are going to arrive on the scene because they're freaking out about one guy with a camera as they're being recorded by the post office cameras. That is, if there's anything that's worthy of ridicule, it would be that. So back to the psychological operations from GoArmy.com. These soldiers are known for their communication expertise, and that's what, whether wittingly or unwittingly, I think it's wittingly, Tuapre has proved himself time and time again to be something of a communications expert, because what is he communicating with Americans? He's using humor and a very simple form to take his camera out into public to show exactly how tyrannical the law enforcement agents have become. And the people who are supposed to be protecting and serving us and have these service-oriented businesses like, the federal post office that gets tax cattle fund, and they think they've got a right to shut it down because of one guy exercising their right. That's a communications expert right there. If you can do that, you can, man, sky's the limit. Using unconventional tactics to persuade and influence foreign allies and enemies in support of U.S. Army objectives. So what do I think? I've never talked to Tuapre, but what do I think his objective is? I think his objective is to expose the actual tyranny going on in America in a very simple, very humorous form, so that the common man, people who are immersed in cognitive dissonance, and that's all day long from almost everybody you see. If that weren't so, then people wouldn't have worn the ritualistic shame muzzles and bowed down to the big pharma industrial complex to get their what. So we're going to listen to some of this. I wanted to go over this with you live because, man, this is masterful. This is a psychological masterclass. Let's take a look.
The postmaster wanted to say something to you.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, my name is Muhammad. I'm the postmaster at the Bloomingdale Post Office.
Well, we'll start with I'm Asif. And I'm
My
Asif.
lobby is a very small place, so I need all that space for my customers that's to come inside and outside. So I understand you got your First Amendment rights, and I hate to call the law enforcement to remove you.
Oh, wait, what was the thing about the First Amendment?
Did you hear what the supervisor or postmaster said? I understand you have your First Amendment rights, but he's going to go full throttle. He's going to put the pedal to the metal, and he's going to call men with guns anyway. Putting this man's, and by the way, guys, you know, this goes without saying. Anytime a law enforcer shows up, a badged uniformed tyrant with a utility belt and a firearm, your life while they're on the scene is in mortal jeopardy. We've seen this time and time again. If cops can show up for a welfare check and the person that they were doing the welfare check ends up in a body bag, you know things can go south really quickly. This is anytime any First Amendment auditor, Second Amendment auditor is in the presence of a cop, their life is on the line.
All I'm saying, sir, you cannot be posted up inside the lobby.
But isn't it a post Asif, so can't you
Or you
post?
conducted any transactions there.
Can't you post at the post Asif?
Or you conducted any transactions there.
Asif Khan.
Or you conducted any transactions. No?
Wait, what was the thing?
Give the phone back to the employee.
Oh, no, it's already in her hand. I never grabbed the phone. She was holding it over the counter or whatever.
Did you hear the postmaster call? He said you can't be inside.
But the regular master said I could.
The regular master.
Is your phone recording in your pocket there? No, phone's recording in the
I was
government
keeping
facility. I know. You go outside so you don't get in trouble. I don't want you to get in trouble.
But would it be like a crime or whatever?
It is, because this is a government office, like, and any government places you're not allowed to videotape or take pictures.
This postal employee, I think she's a postal employee, but this person, whether she's a postal employee or not, is under the impression that a man with a camera in the public lobby of a tax cattle funded post office is committing a crime. See, that's another thing that we need to do with channels like To a Pre, with channels like whatever channel, whatever your favorite channel is. We have to sensitize people and educate them on the fact of what a crime is. If you're not leaving a real world victim, you have not committed a crime. We got to get back to, you're not committing a crime if you break a rule. If you do something opposite of what the politicians and the law enforcers say that you've done, there's no crime there. We need to treat crime as real crime, and we need to stop manufacturing criminals because our minds are so warped about what reality really is about.
You know, when you go to the city, they watch you if you take pictures of buildings and stuff.
Is it like a misdemeanor or whatever?
I don't know what kind of, but I know it's not allowed. I'm just trying to explain it to you nicely.
Oh, is it like a? Do you know the statute?
I don't know the statute. I just know it's against the law to take pictures in a government facility, and this is a government facility.
Oh, I see.
I just don't think you understand that. That's why I'm helping you understand that.
Okay.
You seem like a nice fellow.
You too. Do you know like the name of it?
A person who's immersed in cognitive dissonance is going to try to help the guy who's psychologically operating on her as she speaks. She's going to try to pull the wool, off of his eyes. Okay, gotcha.
Crime, just so I know, because like.
I don't know the name of the crime now.
Is it possible that maybe it was like kind of like a hive mind thing? That maybe you're tapped into like a hive mind?
No, it's a law in the United States. You can't take. I'm just helping you explain that. I don't know nothing. I'm not.
No, I appreciate it. I'm open for listening.
I would go outside though if I were you, because if the police come, you don't want that.
Well, so if it's not a specific statute or like a law, then I'd be fine, right?
It is a law. It is a law.
Do you know like the title of the law?
It's a law.
Oh, okay. Weird. Who like told you that or whatever?
It's a known thing.
It's like hive mind. That's a hive mind mentality you're tapping into.
Just real quick, hive mind might be a new term, and it seems self-explanatory, and it kind of is, but it's a large number of people who generally unwittingly display uncritical conformity. So they're conforming to the masses, the minds of the uncritical masses, and they're cementing individually and collectively cementing themselves in their own echo chamber and their own cognitive dissonance. That's the hive mind mentality. It's where, a movie star in Hollywood will wear a pair of shoes that cost $1,000. And before you know it, all these other people, because they have a hive mind, think that, oh man, those shoes that probably only cost $10 are out there paying $1,000 for a shoe that they don't need just because Hollywood promoted it. That's a shallow example of the hive mind mentality. But we see it all the time with mainstream media. CIA infiltrated Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra Media. They will say something and they will keep saying it. And because there is a hive mind, uncritical conformity, cognitive dissonant mentality, everybody will start parroting what CBS, NBC, Fox News, the Communist News Network say.
Yeah, I was checking ChatGPT. I can't find like any specific like law or whatever.
Okay.
Is it possible it's not a law, or
is it possible it's not a law?
Are you from here? Are you from United States, like Jersey? If it's just a known thing that you're not allowed to in government places.
I think
we
that's
all
like,
do that from.
Well, so I think that's like programming. It's like a hive mind thing.
Okay, well,
It is.
I think you've been programmed.
Not a big deal.
Would you want to stick around if the police...
Good for him for stepping forward with that and introducing that idea into this lady's mind and, broadly speaking, the mind of the world. That's exactly what's going on. She is participating in the hive mind, uncritical thinking, uncritical conformity mentality that we see. That literally, that is how nations crumble, guys. When you cease, when you back away from the table of critical thinking and you just start thinking like everybody else is and you have no idea why you're doing it, that's when nations take a serious tumble.
Tell me like it's not a crime, just so we can be both aware.
I'm gonna hang out with my friend. So
all right, well,
you're fine.
All right.
Are you recording right there on your shirt? On your that's on.
Yeah, it's on my shirt.
I hate pictures and video of myself. That's crazy.
I hate pictures and video of myself. That's why I'm in a post office where there's like 10 video cameras going on from the time I leave my car to the time I enter the post office to the time I get back in my car. Makes a lot of sense.
Supposed to record it here as a government facility.
And I tried to explain that, he doesn't understand it. I don't.
Oh, so we all want to find out what specific law it is to record in public if it's illegal or whatever?
You're harassing the customers inside.
Oh, no, I wasn't at all.
Yeah, you were.
You literally just got here. How would you know that?
That's the call.
That's the call, so you
That's
just
fine.
believe,
He's
you
being
just believe the
recorded,
dispatcher?
it's fine. What?
You just believe whatever the call says? You don't investigate?
So you tell me why you're here.
Well, no, not if you're coming with preconceived notions. I'm going to plead the fifth.
You're going to plead the fifth?
Yeah, please.
Okay, but if they don't want you here, you must leave.
No, because I have business here.
You have business here?
Yes.
Like what?
I have to get some stamps and stuff.
So why don't you do that?
Okay, doing that now.
Any more units here?
Can you send me more units? Can you send me more men and women in uniform with guns? Because I'm dealing with a guy who thinks he's got the right to stand in this here public post office and film anything that the eye can see. That's why I need backup.
He seems like a nice fellow.
And you seem nice as well, but so we're trying to see what the specific law is against filming in public. She said it's a crime. So you're a law enforcement officer. What's the crime about filming in public?
What's
the crime? You're harassing customers that are coming in by filming.
Again, I'm false.
And this is...
All right, I can't talk to you for being irrational.
You're planning to here. Exactly.
Some stamps and stuff.
You're not getting anything.
Why not?
How long has he been in here?
For like
15,
20 minutes.
So why don't you get stamps?
Why are you, believe me, I'm trying to help you. Why are you recording like this way, but you're holding it that way? Because I know you're recording us because you're moving that.
So is
you're
the recording...
recording all this. This is a government place.
So I'm not allowed to, you're saying it's a crime?
Yeah, but why are you recording this? This is strange. It's
is it a crime or not?
You're harassing the customers, yes.
I'm not harassing anyone, you keep saying that.
Okay, I understand. That's for now.
Enter the pig with the ponytail, and now she's going to take control. As dangerous as it is for a cop to show up on the scene, it's exponential when a female cop arrives on the scene.
No, I just didn't want to leave her alone.
Okay, thank you so much.
And what's with all the arm sleeve? Every cop that you see in this, I'm think every cop. What's up with these sleeve tattoos? Is this a new thing for cops? I mean, you're seeing this more and more. The initial cop has a sleeve tattoo with a skull on his arm, and I'm not saying I'm against tattoos, but is this a new gang thing? Because the first guy's got a sleeve tattoo with a skull on his forearm. She's got a sleeve tattoo with a skull on her forearm. The other two cops that come in have sleeve tattoos. What's going on?
Hi.
Hello.
Just to let you know, our body cams are on.
All right, we're recording as well.
Okay, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Just chilling.
Just chill.
Well, what's going on? Because obviously,
look at her face.
I'm here for a reason. I don't just show up to the post office. So what's going on today?
Oh, not much. What you up to? This is my friend Monsid, my brother.
Okay.
Well,
what is the reason why you're recording here?
Oh, just First Amendment recording stuff. Chilling.
Okay. You know that they also, for the First Amendment, they reserve the right to bar you from this location.
What does that have to do with the First Amendment? You know, they have the First Amendment right to bar you from this location for exercising your First Amendment right. What if can a federal office, or a post office in this case, can they bar you from conducting business because of the color of your skin? Can they bar you from business because they don't like the kind of political shirt that you might be wearing? So they think it's okay to bar him from the post office, and they will, and you'll find out how they do it. They circumvent it. But the bottom line is they keep a man from exercising his First Amendment rights, and they punish everybody else who wants to use that post office. This is so freaking fascinating to me. This is a psychological smorgasbord. If you want to major or minor in psychology, just watch one of these videos right here. You're going to gain so much more knowledge. You're going to gain a real understanding of how the hive mind works on a video like this than you could ever from taking some kind of college class.
Bar you from this location.
And for the First Amendment, all citizens have the right to free press.
Oh, and if any government officials feel even slightly uncomfortable about it, they may bar you from public areas.
Wait, what?
Was it like a public building or whatever?
Great edits.
This is her place of work. So if she says, "Oh, I don't want this person here. They're causing a disturbance," then you can leave.
Okay, so we're not causing a disturbance. Perfect.
Why have you been here for 20 minutes trying to get stamps?
Is there a time limit? Was it like better?
Well, you're recording and harassing
she wants you
customers
out
that
of
come
here.
in.
Oh,
And
she gets the say.
Okay, I plead the fifth.
Either you're gonna walk out, or there's gonna be other issues that I mean, nobody wants that.
What other issues?
Oh, don't worry. We'll fabricate them. What's she saying? Man, why can't a cop just go, hell yeah, they got it. Look, Postmaster, they have a First Amendment right to record anything that their eyes see in public. What's the big deal? Hey, get everybody's attention. Hey, guys, he's got a right, just like you guys have a right to record in public. What's the problem? I'm here to uphold, protect, and defend everybody's right. He's got a right to do this. You have a right to do this. Have a good day. Why are you calling emergency services? But they don't do that because they want to pacify and they want to placate and they want to look like the good guys for the majority. What if the majority stood up and said, you know what? There's nothing wrong with what this guy's doing. The cops would just go about their business, but they don't because they want to appeal to the majority of lemmings who are of the hive mind.
I mean,
you could be arrested.
There's a ton.
For what?
Disorderly conduct.
Yep.
There's no disorderly conduct.
Making up charges.
Obstruction, hindering. It's really what we have. We have several routes to go. I don't understand why
just
you,
so you know.
Want to make this harder than anything.
They only have one route to go. They have one job. And what is that? Upholding rights. That's it.
Has to be.
I was kind of wondering the same thing about you guys. With all due respect.
This is infuriating.
Well, I didn't just show up here on my own, right?
Yeah, you showed up with a partner.
No, I got called here because you're causing a disturbance within.
Because someone
the
claimed I was
establishment.
causing a disturbance. You don't
Multiple
know that.
people claimed you were causing a disturbance.
She
And
just said-
I'm here right now, and I can tell that you are causing a disturbance.
Oh, I don't
Just
believe
because
this
you're not
is
being loud or rowdy or things like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not disturbing the peace.
Then in what way could you possibly disturb somebody by silently standing in a corner of a post office and silently recording? Where is the disturbing, the word disturbed and disturbing the peace has no meaning. Look at her face. Look at her face.
Look.
What are you doing here?
They don't even know what to do.
You said, okay, I'm going to go to the post office. I'm going to record. I'm going to see how far I can push my limits.
Oh, as far as like waking up this morning, so I woke up this morning. I had a chicken and rice shake. I had like chicken, rice, and water, and I blended it into a smoothie.
What about
That's
you?
like first thing in the morning.
I'm with my brother here. Just
What are you brothers of?
Brothers of like the same mom. Like, so I was born, and then a few days after our mom pooped him out. We come from
All right.
like, the same batch.
We come out of the same batch.
I'm not going to keep doing this.
Okay.
So you're going to leave. You're going to leave, or we're going to make you leave.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
The threat of force. And cops always come with the implied threat of force because they're the ones with the guns. They're the ones who are going to tell you how it's going to go. And if you don't comply with their orders, they're going to lay their hands on you and things are going to go a whole lot different. Here's the deal. Things are going to go one of two ways, buddy.
All you want.
It's one or two options.
It's either you're leaving.
There it goes.
You're
there it
leaving,
goes.
or you're going to just come back with us, and we're gonna.
Hey, how you doing? Okay, do you mind if we just get name and badge numbers down the line real quick?
my name is Detective Glover.
Bill?
You want them out?
Yes. We've established.
Here's the option.
Here's
It's a public place, right? So if you stay here, they don't want you here anymore. They can shut down the post office, like what happened in Woodland Park, and then you're gonna have to be removed, right?
What was in Woodland Park?
You.
We've
seen your videos.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
We know,
we get it. Yeah, we get it. So that's the option. You guys have investigators, right, through the post office.
Right.
So they can enforce that unless you want to shut down, and then this is what
So there's no ignorance here. We've seen your videos. We get it. We get it. We know that you're here exercising your First Amendment rights. They know they've taken an oath to protect and defend and uphold this guy's individual rights. They've seen the videos. They're educated on what's going on. And check out the sleeve tattoos, by the way. But they're going to continue to go full throttle against this guy's rights. And they're going to come up with a crafty way to remove him from the post office as he's exercising his rights. This is crazy off the chart stuff, guys. Crazy off the chart stuff. Everybody should be reacting with shock, the jaw dropping on the desk going, who the frick do these people think they are? Are there skulls on this? He's got a face. Are there skulls? Is that a skull on his right? What is the deal with these That's a lion. He's got a lion on his forearm. But wow, I don't think you can get a better example of the hive mind than from the Thin Blue Line gang. The conformity is, it's off. The Richter scale is going crazy on this.
Okay. Is that an option? You want to talk to the postmaster? Yeah.
We've seen your videos.
Overall.
Are you guys together?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're brothers.
Okay.
Okay. We just keep it chill. Stay.
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. You seem good.
So
Good.
this guy, he's been going around to local post offices. I see some emails from Allendale side of River.
Yep.
He's been there. He just left Riverdale not too long ago. I talked to Postmaster Ramel Pendant, right?
Okay.
So he stayed there like 5 minutes and then he left. Well, didn't give him attention, so...
So I've looked into this individual in the past. I've seen his videos. So you have the authority to shut the place down. So if you close...
Is that true? Does he really have the authority to shut the place down when the tax cattle have been extorted from their funds to keep this place open so that there can actually be a service during regular business hours? There are P.O. boxes people have to come to. There are letters, there are certified letters that have to be responded to. And did they really have the authority to cut people off from a service that they've been forced to pay for? I don't think so. I don't think so.
The store, right? Then he would have to leave. That is an option at this point, just to get him off the property and get him out of your lot. Would you be willing to do that, to circumvent this?
What is the cop trying to circumvent? He's trying to circumvent the rights that he swore to protect and uphold. He didn't put his hand on the Bible and put his right hand toward heaven and say, I will try my best. On my honor, I will do my duty to tyranny against my country, and I will come up with ways to circumvent these people's rights. You would think that that was the oath that they took, but that's not the oath that they took. When you have a person who's going to violate his own oath, the words that came out of his mouth voluntarily, nobody put a gun to this cop's head or any of these cops and said, hey, swear to protect and defend the rights of the American people. Nobody did that. They did it voluntarily. So if they don't even have the integrity to fulfill their oath, what kind of people are we actually dealing with here? The most criminal, despicable kind, in my opinion.
So other than that, we can't force him to leave.
All right. We'll shut off the lights in the property.
But they are, other than that, we can't force them to leave. But if you take your authority that you really don't have and shut down a tax account funded post office, cutting off the service to everybody, that's how we can force them to leave. We can circumvent this whole stupid rights thing. We can slowly but surely turn this ship to a North Korean style tyranny atmosphere.
Just shut down, and then we can go from there. Perfect.
Where do you post your videos?
Just a little bit. Sometimes on YouTube.
Okay.
For what?
Free press stuff.
Free press stuff?
Like, yeah.
When did it take a turn?
He goes free press stuff.
There used to be a lot of comedy, funny stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't do funny stuff anymore.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
So I used to watch when you did the interviews.
Yeah, I wish I still did comedy.
Well, you should.
Yeah, I should
So
get
why'd
back
you
to that.
switch?
Because I wanted to be an independent journalist or whatever.
Comedy.
We do interview what is your business here today?
I have to buy a stamp, and then I have to think about what other.
You've watched his videos. You know what his business is. His business is to stand on his First Amendment rights, and it's your business to protect those rights, and you're not doing it because you're incapable. You're so cemented. I mean, this is the pinnacle of an example of somebody who's suffering a severe case, a terminal case of cognitive dissonance. If after watching Tuapre's videos, he has the gall to lean against this post office counter and continue to foist tyranny on Tuapre, I question if he's rehabilitatable.
Stuff I had to mail and stuff.
Did you figure that out yet?
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
What are you thinking about?
Well, if either way, though, what's the rush or whatever, you know what I mean?
Oh, rush.
I got you. Yeah,
Ron, you probably got a lot of other things to do today, right?
Yeah.
So, figure out what you need and let's go.
Seems like a busy day.
Same deal. Every post office you go to, you get it. You guys do it every time.
What do you mean, as far as the process?
Yeah. You come to the post office, you look at barcode. Oh, I'm scanning barcodes.
Did you see how smart that guy was? I missed this the first time. Watch how smart this guy on the outside of the door. Watch.
You get it. You guys do it every time.
Look, he looks in. He's like, whoa, a bunch of cops in there. Ain't nothing good can come from this scenario. I'll try this on a later date. And he just hightails it out of there. Look
as far
at
as
this
the process?
guy. The cops in there? I ain't going in there. You could die in the presence of cops.
We've seen it. You get the process. So that's what we're doing. We have to shut down the post office for you and make you leave that way. I guess that's what we'll do since you don't want to talk.
Well, looks like everybody's going to have to. Brian couldn't get his act together. Now everybody's got to do 20 push-ups. Everybody. Oh, okay. Since you're going to be the wise guy, the smart guy, everybody get out pen and paper. We're going to do a quiz right now. Remember when you were in school, everybody in the class got punished because of what one person was doing that really wasn't even technically wrong? That's the same thing here. It's trying to manipulate, trying to coerce, trying to threaten somebody in an underhanded way because they know they've got no standing. They don't have legal standing. They definitely don't have constitutional standing. So now they're going to threaten to okay, well, you're just going to have to look bad in the eyes of the public. We're just going to shut this whole thing down. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
I keep pretty chill.
What's that?
I just keep it pretty chill.
Okay, so they're going to be shutting down.
You know what? I don't generally mind tattoos, but I specifically wouldn't get a sleeve tattoo or any kind of tattoo because law enforcement has it. I don't know. I don't even want to be identified with these people. This is scum of the earth, guys. And that is not hyperbole to say this. You know, when countries descend into tyranny, one of the first things that a government will do is they will disarm them so that they can't protect themselves. And then it all goes down from here. I'd guarantee you if the governor of whatever, I don't know what state this is, but it said Bloomingdale or Bloomfield or whatever state this is, if the governor made an executive order saying, we're going to confiscate everybody's firearms, these people would be first in line to go door to door to violate everybody's Second Amendment right. Guaranteed. Just like we saw in Katrina in the early 2000s, you had the military and you had local and state and federal police going door to door, rounding up people who decided they didn't want to leave their house, and they were confiscating weapons. That's going to happen. Why? Because they have no integrity. They're not moralists. They're not the moralists that they should be. They're not doing what is right regardless of what they're told. They will always do what they're told regardless of what is right, because a paycheck is connected to it. No integrity at all.
Establishment for that. So you're going to have to leave.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because they're closing.
Okay.
All right.
When are they closing?
What's that?
It's infuriating, man.
Awesome. So that was chill, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, guys.
All right.
That was a chill way to head on out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, that was chill, right?
As funny as this kind of stuff is, I mean, what overshadows the humor that Tua Apri is bringing to the table, and he is bringing humor and kind of a laid-back look at this kind of stuff, but man, talk about peering into the soul of the tyrant. Not one, and where are the good cops? You know, we're always hearing, no, there's, 95, 98% of them are good. It's only 2 to 5% that are the bad apples that needed to be weeded out. Where are the good cops that arrive on the scene? Spoiler alert, you won't see one. Nobody's going to arrive going, what are you talking about? This guy has an unalienable right. He doesn't even have just a constitutional right. He's got an unalienable right to do what he is doing. And we have the obligation, or we should have the duty, to protect this guy's rights, but you're not doing it. Who the heck are you guys? I'm going to write you up. I'm going to write you up. That's what a good cop would be doing. And guess what? That good cop won't be on the force for very long, because the thin blue line cannot tolerate any kind of disinfecting sunshine freedom coming through the corridors of the department.
Yeah, we were too chill.
It was happening in another post office.
Here we go.
I didn't know they were a thing.
This is what they do.
So they're just looking, they're First Amendment auditors. They want to see how we'll react, how you'll react. And we've read up on this.
So they know. They've actually been given the cheat sheet. This is tantamount to a teacher pulling you aside and saying, hey, we're going to have a pop quiz tomorrow. It's going to be a 50-question test. Here are all the answers. And you having the answers and still failing the test. They got all the answers. They know what they could be doing. They could actually appear on Tua Apri's camera as the hero that they should be depicted at, but they can't do it. They can't do it. They've got the answers. They've seen the videos. They've seen Tua Apri's videos, and they still fail they choose to fail the test. This is willful defiance of any freedom any American has anywhere on American soil. If they're going to do this to Tua Apri, they will do it to you. They will do it to your sons. They will do it to your daughters. They will do it to your mother, your father, your grandparents. They will do it to everybody. And then when the Reichstag fire decree is signed, guess who's going to be the first in line to ramp up the tyranny on your head? Guess who's going to put their boot on your neck? They will. They have the answer. They know what they could do, and they don't do it because they can't. They're incapable.
I've educated myself enough to know that if you guys shut down, they have to leave.
Guys, I am going to... Let me go back about 20 seconds. Let's see. 5, 10, 15, 20. Let's listen to what they... Let this sink down, because the more I think about it, the more I mentally chew on this, the more infuriated I get. Listen to this.
It was happening.
And thank God for Tua Apri. He did a lot of footwork on this. He went and FOIA requested these body cams so that he could be recording on the outside and get the ins to what they're saying on the inside for us. This is a lot of work.
Another post office.
I didn't know they were a thing.
This is what they do.
So they're just looking, they're First Amendment auditors. They want to see how we'll react, how you'll react. And we've read up on this. I've educated myself enough to know that if you guys shut down, they have to leave. Staying within here is considered burglary or trespassing. Fortunately, we can't really trespass them. You guys have your own investigators that can trespass them.
Do you know their names?
It's on YouTube. I think that'll be...
When we come back, and we just have to keep...
That's it.
I'm going to have to keep shutting it down. So all those people that have paid for P.O. boxes here, they can't get in. All those people who have to send that certified letter, they're just going to have to go somewhere else. There's one guy who drives a long distance because he's got an appointment for a passport. They don't even let him in.
That's the only way. And then if you guys want to leave, then we come down. We do the same thing.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
All right. Yep. You're welcome. Still closed.
Well, there goes my job.
Bloomingdale Police. Hi. The Bloomingdale Police were just called to Bloomingdale Post Office, and then they reprimanded the guy and they left. But when they left, he went back in, and now he's like right by the doorway again. That weird guy with the cameras. I just wanted to let you know. Okay, I'll let him know.
Remember us from earlier? Yeah. Okay. Was it overall pretty chill though compared to your other calls? Yeah.
Got him to admit it. Got him to admit it. Love that.
You guys, just over here. Oh, I love that mask. Get out of here.
This guy with the skull mask is a postal employee, a public servant deriving his paycheck from the American tax cattle, and he thinks that he's got the right to tell a member of the public to leave his post office with a Halloween mask on. Very unprofessional. Very tyrannical.
Professional.
Get out of here.
Or is it Halloween or whatever?
I'm telling you, please leave the premises. We're closed.
Introducing the post-OSIF closing monster. Happy Halloween. We're doing business here.
I'm telling you, we're closed. Please leave the premises. Are you done, sir? Yeah, I'm leaving. Thank you very much. Guys, you don't have the right.
Don't have the right what? Come talk about it.
Wow.
To ourselves.
I remember you during closing.
Excuse me, sir.
Oh, back
Leave
here.
the premises.
Oh, sure. Are you doing trick or treat? We don't have any candy or whatever.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Sir, I'm calling the law enforcement right now. You gotta leave my premises. We're closed.
I can't leave because it's like locked or whatever.
Just so you're aware, there's people recording.
When you call men with guns, law enforcement agents, on a man who's not doing anything wrong, you have effectively swatted him and you put his life in danger.
That's weird. Man, but don't look, but there are people recording in there. How you doing, sir?
I don't want to wind up.
I got you. So basically, there's a YouTuber here. He likes to record in public places.
That's how you make.
So that's why we're here.
Guys, just to fill you in, this lady is the head of law enforcement. That's why they're reporting to her. They have to...
No, she's not. She's just some random lady.
Wait, so she's just some random lady? Well, why are they telling her all this?
No, I know. I have no clue. This whole situation is just bizarre.
That is bizarre.
Yep, it is.
Anyway, hey guys, never mind. Keep watching.
He's allowed to be here. I just want to let you know that.
So I can get my mail?
Yeah, you can go in. I'm just letting you know. Yeah.
Possibly you might be famous.
After you.
No, he's in there. I locked him in.
He locked him in the post
I
office.
can't have him. I gotta be like idiot work.
So the last time that they were here, what they did was they closed.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I gotcha. So our understanding is they have, I know it's annoying, they have a right to be here and record. So we're going to close, we'll have them leave then.
Hey, how's it going, Sergeant?
How are you?
Good, how are you? Oh, nice to meet you.
They are closing down.
Oh, they're closed?
Yep.
Oh, word. Is it like a holiday or whatever?
No, he has the right to close if he wants to.
Oh, okay, word. When was he going to close?
Right now.
Okay, should we head out?
Yes, please.
Alright, that was chill.
What's that?
It was chill.
What was?
We were just filming or whatever.
Oh, I didn't see anything.
Oh, word, you were giving me detective vibes for a second.
No.
Oh, Becky, alright, word.
All right, this is the guy here. He has arrived because he has an appointment with the post office that is now closed because the guy was exercising his rights, and his appointment is to get a passport.
They're closed for Halloween.
You know, people got important stuff to do, and the post office is dinking around.
We have an appointment here.
Yeah, the Two Chill Boys closed it down for Halloween.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry.
Oh, we're the Two Chill Boys.
Oh, that's cool, but I got an appointment with the post office.
But they closed for it was like a Halloween celebration. Did you see his mask?
No.
Oh, I see.
We have an appointment at 12 o'clock.
What are they trying to do? I don't understand what their goal is.
So if you watch on the... mute. What's that? You want to mute?
Look at this. They pull out... This is so freaking funny.
Mute. What's that? You want to mute?
They pull out Tuapre's YouTube channel. They're aware of who he is. They're aware of what he does. They know that he stands for his First Amendment rights, and they can't even bring themselves to protect those rights that they also have. You know what's so ironic about this whole thing is that Tuapre is actually standing there upholding not only his own rights, but the rights of people who are trying to deprive him of his rights. That's America, man. America.
I have an appointment.
Look at this guy.
Yeah, how you doing? I have a passport appointment.
I understand. We have a little bit of a situation right now.
We got
He'll be in touch for you, all right? Okay? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, is it like wait a few minutes?
It's...
I just left work. I'm in Livingston.
I understand. It's a bit of an inconvenience.
It's a bit of an inconvenience. Guys, we have situations all over the world. We got problems all over the world. A guy with a camera exercising his natural rights in a post office paid for by tax cattle is not one of those problems.
Let's just speak to you for real quick.
It's infuriating.
First of all, I mean, you want to talk to me about what? I have an appointment. I can't even understand you. Can you take your mask off, please? Is this like, am I being like pranked over here?
No one is being pranked.
That is a natural response for a critical thinking, somebody who's got two brain cells to rub together. Okay, is this a joke? Hold on, wait a second. This guy's had an appointment, according to him. He's had an appointment for 6 months at this post office to get a passport. And they're not letting him in because they got a situation, and all the situation is a guy wants to exercise his First Amendment rights in a publicly funded post office. Yeah. There's a problem. That's a problem. These cops are being the problem.
Why can't he take
Clown
the mask
show,
off?
exactly.
He just doesn't want to be recorded.
He doesn't want to be recorded. Right, this gentleman right here doesn't want to be recorded.
Right now, the facility's closed.
6 months waiting for the passport.
I understand. It's inconvenience.
Sir, I got you. Come in.
Hold on. Hold on. Give me. We're just gonna just close it. All right.
It's closed.
I know it's an inconvenience, but
So now the cops are telling. Okay, let's get that. I missed this the first time I went through it. But the post office guy with the stupid skull mask on tells the guy to come in, but the cops say, no, he can't come in because technically we got to be closed so that we can circumvent the rights of the guy with the video camera. It's just evil. It's just evil.
we're just gonna close it.
All right.
See what I'm saying about the Halloween, the mask or whatever? Did you open back up or whatever? No, I'm doing a Halloween celebration.
I'll tell you what. I'm gonna call the cops.
No, they were just here. I'm filming.
Now the lemmings who were once smiling at Tuapri are turning on Tuapri, even though Tuapri is not the one that's done anything wrong here. The people who've done things wrong are the post office guy and the cops. Now, because this guy can't critically think, he doesn't know who to be mad at, so he gets mad at the wrong guy.
For the Halloween celebration.
Filming me.
And they're going to open it somehow.
People are typically agreeable and nice and understanding, but this isn't the time to be nice and understanding. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of that portion of the Declaration of Independence where it says, prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown, check this out, that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. In other words, you can pretty much push people around and they're so agreeable and they're so nice that they're not going to do anything about it. And the psychological operators on the bad side, the negative psychological operators and the social engineers know that most people are nice, know that most people are kind and agreeable, and they'll suck it up and they'll just take the indiscretion and they'll suffer the evils that have befallen them, and they won't do anything until it gets so bad. But then by the time it gets so bad, it's too late to reverse it. Now your country's going down, it's going to be completely taken over, and you will have absolutely no rights. This is what disgusts me, is that most people are nice and the social engineers try to take advantage of that. And then the black robe tyrants and the clown suit clothed tyrants initiate the will of the evil people on the nice, kind, and agreeable people. It's disgusting. The whole thing is disgusting.
Are you chill?
What's the property?
Here is the creator of the haunted house.
You're on the government
Sir,
property.
do you have the jack-o'-lantern all set up?
Right there.
Citizens are anticipating.
Right?
Okay. And he's documenting some of the first trick-or-treaters to arrive.
Yeah, I love what he says right here. By filming with his phone, the semi-chill monster is engaged in First Amendment protected activity that's so chill. So it's the irony and the hypocrisy that come out in videos like this is crazy to me. This guy is condemning Tuapri for filming while he himself is filming. People are freaking out that a guy is filming them, and then they call more guys with more cameras who are going to continue filming them.
And some other trick-or-treaters were at the front door, just letting you know.
Oh, and the guys with the cameras are telling the guy with the camera that the post office is closed because he's filming. And they stay in the post office continuing to film with their body cams.
Whatever.
I said get off my property.
Isn't it chill though? We're the two chill boys.
I got trucks coming in. Get off my property.
No, we're the two chill
Get
boys.
off my property.
We're the two chill boys.
You're not going to get off my property?
No, we're the two chill boys.
Yeah?
Becky, can you like join our gang and we could be the three chill boys? That's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, what is your name?
Oh, Becky, today since I'm in costume too or whatever, they call me the two chill boy.
Okay, what is your name? No, another chill.
He's the second chill boy.
Yeah, that's good. Good for you. Good for you.
Becky.
Yeah. You know what? Stay here all day. I need you to stick around. Stick around for a while.
Are you doing an after party celebration for the haunted house? Becky, what are you doing? Like some cool dinner or whatever?
What's the fun if you know ahead of time, right?
I know. Ooh, that's spooky. That was spooky, Muhammad.
You coming on my property?
Oh, no. I'm chilling.
Right there. This guy's on government property. Look at where he's at. Look where he's stepping on. Look where he's stepping on. The walkway ramp. He's on the walkway ramp. Government property.
I don't see any no coming to the haunted house signs.
Keep walking up.
Oh, okay. Keep walking up this way.
Keep walking up.
Up this way.
See, right?
He's telling him to walk up. So Tuapri's going, oh, okay, I'll walk up. This is great.
On the government property. He's on my dock now.
Becky, I'm on the dock. Because I'm about to fish.
Yeah, stay right there. This isn't public property.
No, we're here for the haunted house.
Loading dock where the truck driver is loading.
Becky.
So you're on the loading dock. You're on it. You're on it dock.
Becky, he's too chill.
Come on in.
This way?
You're on the postal property, right there.
Oh, perfect, Becky.
Thank you very much.
Becky.
Get out of my way.
What I think is interesting about this is that Tuapri, let me just put a cap on this video. He masterfully, positively, not in the negative sense, but in the positive sense, psyops every single one of these public servants. And they could not, even though they're familiar with him, they're familiar with Tuapri's information and his videos, they could not bring themselves to do the right thing because it's not in them. The only time you do the right thing is if it's in you, and that's called integrity. And by the way, you'll do the right thing whether the video camera's on you or not. Why? Because that's the kind of person you are. That is your character. That's what comes out. It's like out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. If bad things come out, it's because that bad thing was in you. If good things come out, it's because that good thing was in you. They have the capability to do what is right, or do they? Because like I said, they got the cheat sheet for the final exam. They got all the answers in the order that the exam was going to give it, and they could not pass the test. Unbelievable. Know your rights, stand for your rights, exercise your rights. Rights are like a muscle. If you don't exercise them, if you don't use them, they will atrophy and you will lose them, because there is somebody on the other side of the coin that wants to take your rights away. They want to impress and force tyranny into your life. And the only way we stop it is to do what Tuapri is doing and just stand up against it by exercising rights. The price of freedom is now and will always be eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion is the means by which the people have and will secure their own oppression.
We begin with another controversial arrest. This time it's a 73-year-old woman with dementia who was shoved to the ground and cuffed. In an emotional interview, her daughter says her mother was confused and scared by what happened.
It's heartbreaking video. A 73-year-old woman with dementia is pushed to the ground and arrested. She weighs just 80 pounds and she's injured. Now the daughter of that elderly woman, Karen Garner, is speaking out.
She was confused and scared. She didn't understand what was going on.
Alyssa Schwartz told CBS this morning that her mother suffered severe injuries from that violent police encounter.
This is Mom's jacket that she had on the day that it happened. And it's got the blood on the back from where her hands were handcuffed.
Ma'am, police, stop.
Body cam footage shows police approach the woman along the side of the road as she carries flowers. She was accused of trying to shoplift $14 worth of items from a Walmart in Loveland, Colorado. Store security says once they confronted her, she returned the items. The police seem to be determined to arrest her.
I'm going home.
They just released footage from the arrest last summer. It shows officers forcing Karen Garner to the ground and putting her in handcuffs.
Right now you're resisting, which is not going to fly with me.
Her family says the woman's dementia impairs her ability to understand.
I'm going home.
Another officer comes to assist. The elderly woman is pushed hard against the cop car. The family says she suffered a dislocated shoulder and broken arm. They also allege she was kept in a jail cell for 6 hours with no medical attention.
They hurt my wrists, they hurt my shoulders.
Karen Garner's family filed a lawsuit alleging excessive force. That led to the discovery of this video at the station house, showing police watching the arrest video and mocking the woman.
I love it.
3 police officers have resigned, and a sergeant is on administrative leave. Garner's daughter is calling on those officers to be prosecuted.
I think they need to go to jail.
A number of police departments in Colorado have now enlisted the Alzheimer's Association to train officers how to handle similar situations.
Elected officials, especially judges like Sharon Holmes right here, are a cut above. They're better than the rest of us. They would never drink and drive, especially with kids in the car. Wait, what's this?
You have anything to say about Judge Holmes getting drunk in the Hunt Club? Nothing to say about her getting drunk in the Hunt Club at the bar and driving her grandkid? Nothing about that? You have nothing to say? But I've got her in there getting drunk when y'all weren't serving food. She gets drunk, y'all know this, and she goes out and drives. I've got her getting drunk on days y'all were not serving food. What you should do is you should tell the drunk Judge Holmes to get out of your bar. That's the Hunt Club, y'all. They're trying to cover it up. She's still there getting drunk. Oh my God, you're the bailiff. You're the one. She called an employee to bail you out. But you don't need to come out here yelling at me, Judge. You don't need to come out here yelling at me, Judge. I'm not in front of you, Judge. I'm not in front of you, Judge.
Go ahead, Mr. Durbin.
I'll stay out here then.
On average, over the 10-year period from 2012 to 2021, over 10,800 people died every year in drunk driving accidents. That's over 108,000 people dead in just one decade from one thing that was entirely preventable: drunks behind the wheel of a vehicle. This figure doesn't include all the people who were injured in those accidents, and it doesn't come close to the number of people who have been negatively affected because some careless drunk decided it would be a good idea to tool down the road in a 4,000-pound rolling hunk of metal. Now, it's infuriating enough to know that anybody out there would attempt to drive intoxicated and put the lives of others in the public at risk. But what if it's a public official who is tasked with protecting and serving that public? What if it's somebody who would throw the book at you if you attempted to drive in a drunken stupor? This is Tulsa County District Judge Sharon Holmes. What does Sharon Holmes have to do with the horrifying and staggering statistic of drunk driving accidents and deaths? Well, nothing. Yet. At least not that we know of. But considering that this is also allegedly Tulsa County District Judge Sharon Holmes entering a Tulsa bar called the Hunt Club with her 8-year-old grandson, and this is allegedly Judge Sharon Holmes sitting at the bar of the Hunt Club, allegedly knocking back multiple shots of Tito's vodka and a can of White Claw. And this is also allegedly the same Judge Sharon Holmes just minutes later leaving the Hunt Club with her grandson and getting into a 4-door Nissan and driving away. Maybe somebody needs to investigate. Let me introduce to you Oklahoma attorney Ron Durbin. In 2022, Ron was approached by Judge Sharon Holmes in the Tulsa County Courthouse after her bailiff was acting aggressively to members of the press for filming in the courthouse. Ron then jumped in to question the bailiff about her actions, And this is what happened.
As a result of inquiring as to what rule prohibited that and having a conversation related to the First Amendment, Judge Sharon Holmes decided that she wanted to file a bar complaint against me. Why did she want to file a bar complaint against me? It's simple, because when she came out in the hall acting like the tyrant that she is, I didn't kowtow to her demands and I spoke back to her. And finally, at the end of the conversation, I told her to, quite frankly, go back to the bar. Is that really a rule? Do they have like a published rule for y'all that you can't go past the elevators? Is it published?
It's an invisible line.
It's actually a published rule that says there's a visible, where's the visible line?
This is the invisible line.
Ma'am, I'm not talking to you, am I? I'm not talking to you. Stop talking to me, ma'am. She can stop talking to me. I don't need you to talk to me either. I'm over here talking. You can, ma'am, I'm not talking to you, Judge. I'm not talking to you, Judge.
But you don't get to talk to my bailiff.
She came out and talking to me, Judge.
You don't get to talk to my
Judge.
bailiff.
I don't need to talk to you, Judge.
No, you don't. Because you're going to have a problem with me when you get done.
Okay, Judge. Okay, Judge.
Judge Sharon came
I know who you are, Judge. I know who you are. I'm going to file a judicial complaint. Didn't another judge come out of his courtroom and get in a little bit of trouble, Judge? I just thought another judge came out of their courtroom and started yelling at people and got in a little jump. Wasn't that Glasgow the other day that had that issue? Judge, I'm not talking to you either, Judge Drummond. Judge, so just I want if I can have an opportunity. So when we were coming out, they were conducting interviews. I'm recording right now as well.
I'm just telling you, please, whatever your dispute is, do it somewhere in the hallway. That's all I'm asking.
We were walking out, and her judge comes over here, her bailiff comes over here quoting me a rule, Judge. And I asked her what the rule was. So, Judge, I just asked her what rule she was quoting.
You said to come.
I asked her I said what rule is. I understand. I said if she has a problem, then she needs to go talk to somebody else, Judge. But you don't need to come out here yelling at me, Judge. You don't need to come out here yelling at me, Judge. I'm not in front of you, Judge. I'm not in front of you, Judge. Judge, yeah, that's fine. I'll file a judicial complaint, Judge. Say hello to all the media, Sharon. Say hello to all of them.
And please don't call me Sharon.
I can call you whatever. I'm not in front of you, Judge. I can call you whatever I want out here. We're in the public, Judge. Why don't you go drink some more at the bar, Judge? You do all that a lot.
Incidentally, Ron is no stranger to controversy in the courthouse. Having served as an attorney for years, he suspected there was corruption taking place within the Oklahoma injustice system that needed to be rooted out, and he began investigating the method by which grants were released in Tulsa. Ron is said to have requested public records detailing the release of those grants, and on his way to the 4th floor grant office one day, he was barred access by a handful of security guards. One of the guards decided to put his hands on Ron as he attempted to exit the building without the records that he wanted.
Let's go to the 4th floor. Okay. Dude, do not fucking touch me, man. Back up. Back up.
A short scuffle ensued. Ron pushed the officer back in self-defense, and because Officer Touchy-Feely got his little feelings hurt, he filed a police report which resulted in a warrant for assault. After an attempt to turn himself in, which was rejected, Ron planned to appear at a 9:45 hearing on his lawsuit against the city of Tulsa and Mayor G.T. Bynum. Before going in, Ron announced that he would be running for mayor.
I'm here today to now officially announce that I am throwing my hat into the ring for mayor of the city of Tulsa. I'll be filing.
After that, things took a turn.
Mr. Durbin can go. Everybody else will stay out.
We can't go in?
Go ahead, Mr. Durbin.
I'll stay out here then.
Now, getting back to Ron's investigative reporting on Judge Sharon Holmes. Ron says he has attempted to alert the Tulsa Police Department of Judge Holmes' habit of driving drunk with a minor in the car, and he was told by them that he can personally stop her, but until they catch her intoxicated and behind the wheel of a car, there's nothing they can do. One day, while Judge Holmes was in the Hunt Club again with her grandson, Durbin approaches a Tulsa cop to let him know what was happening.
My name's Ron Durbin. I'm an attorney here in town. I got kind of a reputation for going after judges and stuff. And anyway, so we have a Tulsa County judge who's a drunk. And I'll show you the videos here in just a second. But on a regular basis, she brings her grandchild to the Hunt Club, gets totally shit-faced, then proceeds to get in her black vehicle that's parked out in front, and then drives. I'll show you the video of her going in there regularly, walking the kid in, walking the kid out. We were going to expose all this tomorrow, and to do that, we were going to come shoot some B-roll footage with my camera crews in front of the hunt club. Well, she's there right now, getting drunk with her grandkid.
He shows the cop the footage they've managed to capture and then heads back to the bar where he believes the Tulsa Police Department has let Judge Holmes, who's inside the bar allegedly getting hammered, know what's going on.
This is the hunt club that we're standing in front of. And the hunt club is a bar that Judge Holmes frequents regularly. And in frequenting this bar regularly, she often comes in with her grandchild and then walks him out hand in hand and gets in a vehicle while intoxicated and drives. And it's our understanding that the Tulsa Police Department have let them know what's going on and that she's called in assistance today. But right down there is her black Nissan that she drives here every time. And unfortunately for Judge Holmes, I have her already doing and engaging in this behavior repetitively. So, ma'am, are you here to go in the hunt club? Do you have anything to say about Judge Holmes getting drunk in the hunt club? You have anything to say about Judge Holmes getting drunk in the hunt club? Nothing to say about her getting drunk in the hunt club at the bar and driving her grandkid? Nothing about that? You have nothing to say? Nothing to say about that? Is Judge Holmes going to try to leave out of the back? See, we got good stuff here. They're trying to hide this stuff. We've been over here more than 10 times with private investigators. And in every single one of those times that we... No, but hey, I'm glad you're pointing that out, but I got video where y'all weren't serving food. So you might want to, if you want to have a, I understand that, I appreciate that, but I've got her in there getting drunk when y'all weren't serving food, when Masa and that stuff. I've got tons of videos of private investigators. I understand that. I'm just letting you know that she gets drunk, y'all know this, and she goes out and drives. I've got her getting drunk on days y'all were not serving food. I've got it documented in text messages. Don't try to play a game. What you should do is you should tell the drunk Judge Holmes to get out of your bar. I'm not on your, hey, I don't have to leave here. This is public, sir. This is public. I don't have to, you don't have to get permission. You don't have to get permission. I can film anything. It's called the public, sir. It's called the public. It's called the public. It's called the public. You should have her stop driving her drunk ass self and her grandkid. She doesn't, I got it on video. You want to watch the video, sir? That's the hunt club, y'all. They're trying to cover it up. I got her on video. I'm glad you're bringing it now. The Able Commission's got the video, sir. Y'all have a good time. Y'all are epically y'all are so she's leaving out the back. Leaving out the back. She left out the back, man. Y'all get this? Oh yeah, that was no, she's still there getting drunk. She's still there getting drunk. You're the who?
Yelling at her.
You're the bailiff. Oh my God, you're the bailiff. You're the one. She called an employee to bail you out. Great. Great. She called her bailiff to come bail her out. She called a public employee to bail her out. I didn't recognize you, to be quite honest with you.
Actually,
but it adds it. It adds it. That's fantastic. Oh, great. That's great. You called the police. I've already called the police. I already called them. I already called them. She's called her bailiff, y'all. She's called her bailiff to bail her out of trouble. She's called another employee of the Tulsa County court system to bail her out. That is her bailiff. The one that was yelling at the media for recording. That's the bailiff, y'all.
A slew of Tulsa police show up, and of course, there's nothing they can do because with all the obvious attention, the judge would be beyond stupid to get behind the wheel and resume with her regular routine with all these cops around and Durbin's camera crew out. I'm sure we're not done with this case, and I'm sure Judge Sharon Holmes isn't done with her actions. The question is, how often do judges and other public officials try to game the system and attempt to get away with actions that would land all of us in jail?
The Law by Frederick Bastiat. Preface. The law perverted, and the police powers of the state perverted along with it. The law, I say, not only turned from its proper purpose but made to follow an entirely contrary purpose. The law become the weapon of every kind of greed. Instead of checking crime, the law itself guilty of the evils it is supposed to punish. If this is true, it is a serious fact, and moral duty requires me to call the attention of my fellow citizens to it. One life is a gift from God. We hold from God the gift which includes all others. This gift is life, physical, intellectual, and moral life. but life cannot maintain itself alone. The Creator of life has entrusted us with the responsibility of preserving, developing, and perfecting it. In order that we may accomplish this, He has provided us with a collection of marvelous faculties. And He has put us in the midst of a variety of natural resources. By the application of our faculties to these natural resources, we convert them into products, and use them. This process is necessary in order that life may run its appointed course. Life, faculties, production, in other words, individuality, liberty, property, this is man. And in spite of the cunning of artful political leaders, these three gifts from God precede all human legislation, and are superior to it. Life, liberty, and property do not exist because men have made laws. On the contrary, it was the fact that life, liberty, and property existed beforehand that caused men to make laws in the first place. 2. What is law? What, then, is law? It is the collective organization of the individual right to lawful defense. Each of us has a natural right from God to defend his person, his liberty, and his property. These are the three basic requirements of life, and the preservation of any one of them is completely dependent upon the preservation of the other two. For what are our faculties but the extension of our individuality? And what is property but an extension of our faculties? If every person has the right to defend even by force his person, his liberty, and his property, then it follows that a group of men have the right to organize and support a common force to protect these rights constantly. Thus the principle of collective right, its reason for existing, its lawfulness, is based on individual right. And the common force that protects this collective right cannot logically have any other purpose or any other mission than that for which it acts as a substitute. Thus, since an individual cannot lawfully use force against the person, liberty, or property of another individual, then the common force for the same reason cannot lawfully be used to destroy the person, liberty, or property of individuals or groups. Such a perversion of force would be, in both cases, contrary to our premise. Force has been given to us to defend our own individual rights. Who will dare to say that force has been given to us to destroy the equal rights of our brothers? Since no individual acting separately can lawfully use force to destroy the rights of others, does it not logically follow that the same principle also applies to the common force that is nothing more than the organized combination of the individual forces? If this is true, then nothing can be more evident than this: the law is the organization of the natural right of lawful defense. It is the substitution of a common force for individual forces. And this common force is to do only what the individual forces have a natural and lawful right to do: to protect persons, liberties, and properties, to maintain the right of each, and to cause justice to reign over us all. 3. A just and enduring government. If a nation were founded on this basis, it seems to me that order would prevail among the people, in thought as well as in deed. It seems to me that such a nation would have the most simple, easy to accept, economical, limited, non-oppressive, just, and enduring government imaginable, whatever its political form might be. Under such an administration, everyone would understand that he possessed all the privileges as well as all the responsibilities of his existence. No one would have any argument with government, provided that his person was respected, his labor was free, and the fruits of his labor were protected against all unjust attack. When successful, we would not have to thank the state for our success. And, conversely, when unsuccessful, we would no more think of blaming the state for our misfortune than would the farmers blame the state because of hail or frost. The state would be felt only by the invaluable blessings of safety provided by this concept of government. It can be further stated that, thanks to the non-intervention of the state in private affairs, our wants and their satisfactions would develop themselves in a logical manner. We would not see poor families seeking literary instruction before they have bread. We would not see cities populated at the expense of rural districts, nor rural districts at the expense of cities. We would not see the great displacements of capital, labor, and population that are caused by legislative decisions. The sources of our existence are made uncertain and precarious by these state-created displacements. And, furthermore, these acts burden the government with increased responsibilities. 4. The complete perversion of the law. But, unfortunately, law by no means confines itself to its proper functions. And when it has exceeded its proper functions, it has not done so merely in some inconsequential and debatable matters. The law has gone further than this, it has acted in direct opposition to its own purpose. The law has been used to destroy its own objective, it has been applied to annihilating the justice that it was supposed to maintain, to limiting and destroying rights which its real purpose was to respect. The law has placed the collective force at the disposal of the unscrupulous who wish, without risk, to exploit the person, liberty, and property of others. It has converted plunder into a right, in order to protect plunder. And it has converted lawful defense into a crime, in order to punish lawful defense. How has this perversion of the law been accomplished? And what have been the results? The law has been perverted by the influence of two entirely different causes, stupid greed and false philanthropy. Let us speak of the first. 5. A fatal tendency of mankind. Self-preservation and self-development are common aspirations among all people. And if everyone enjoyed the unrestricted use of his faculties and the free disposition of the fruits of his labor, social progress would be ceaseless, uninterrupted, and unfailing. But there is also another tendency that is common among people. When they can, they wish to live and prosper at the expense of others. This is no rash accusation. Nor does it come from a gloomy and uncharitable spirit. The annals of history bear witness to the truth of it, the incessant wars, mass migrations, religious persecutions, universal slavery, dishonesty in commerce, and monopolies. This fatal desire has its origin in the very nature of man, in that primitive, universal, and insuppressible instinct that impels him to satisfy his desires with the least possible pain. 6. Property and plunder. Man can live and satisfy his wants only by ceaseless labor, by the ceaseless application of his faculties to natural resources. This process is the origin of property. But it is also true that a man may live and satisfy his wants by seizing and consuming the products of the labor of others. This process is the origin of plunder. Now, since man is naturally inclined to avoid pain, and since labor is pain in itself, it follows that men will resort to plunder whenever plunder is easier than work. History shows this quite clearly. And under these conditions, neither religion nor morality can stop it. When, then, does plunder stop? It stops when it becomes more painful and more dangerous than labor. It is evident, then, that the proper purpose of law is to use the power of its collective force to stop this fatal tendency to plunder instead of to work. All the measures of the law should protect property and punish plunder. But, generally, the law is made by one man or one class of men. And since law cannot operate without the sanction and support of a dominating force, this force must be entrusted to those who make the laws. This fact, combined with the fatal tendency that exists in the heart of man to satisfy his wants with the least possible effort, explains the almost universal perversion of the law. Thus it is easy to understand how law, instead of checking injustice, becomes the invincible weapon of injustice. It is easy to understand why the law is used by the legislator to destroy in varying degrees among the rest of the people, their personal independence by slavery, their liberty by oppression, and their property by plunder. This is done for the benefit of the person who makes the law, and in proportion to the power that he holds. 7. Victims of lawful plunder. Men naturally rebel against the injustice of which they are victims. Thus, when plunder is organized by law for the profit of those who make the law, all the plundered classes try somehow to enter by peaceful or revolutionary means into the making of laws. According to their degree of enlightenment, these plundered classes may propose one of two entirely different purposes when they attempt to attain political power: either they may wish to stop lawful plunder, or they may wish to share in it. Woe to the nation when this latter purpose prevails among the mass victims of lawful plunder, when they, in turn, seize the power to make laws. Until that happens, the few practice lawful plunder upon the many, a common practice where the right to participate in the making of law is limited to a few persons. But then, participation in the making of law becomes universal. And then, men seek to balance their conflicting interests by universal plunder. Instead of rooting out the injustices found in society, they make these injustices general. As soon as the plundered classes gain political power, they establish a system of reprisals against other classes. They do not abolish legal plunder. This objective would demand more enlightenment than they possess. Instead, they emulate their evil predecessors by participating in this legal plunder, even though it is against their own interests. It is as if it were necessary, before a reign of justice appears, for everyone to suffer a cruel retribution, some for their evilness, and some for their lack of understanding. 8. The results of legal plunder. It is impossible to introduce into society a greater change and a greater evil than this, the conversion of the law into an instrument of plunder. What are the consequences of such a perversion? It would require volumes to describe them all. Thus we must content ourselves with pointing out the most striking. In the first place, it erases from everyone's conscience the distinction between justice and injustice. No society can exist unless the laws are respected to a certain degree. The safest way to make laws respected is to make them respectable. When law and morality contradict each other, the citizen has the cruel alternative of either losing his moral sense or losing his respect for the law. These two evils are of equal consequence, and it would be difficult for a person to choose between them. The nature of law is to maintain justice. This is so much the case that, in the minds of the people, law and justice are one and the same thing. There is in all of us a strong disposition to believe that anything lawful is also legitimate. This belief is so widespread that many persons have erroneously held that things are just because law makes them so. Thus, in order to make plunder appear just and sacred to many consciences, it is only necessary for the law to decree and sanction it. Slavery, restrictions, and monopoly find defenders not only among those who profit from them but also among those who suffer from them. 9. The fate of nonconformists.